Any plans for this evening? Perhaps a game night?
Game over, man. It's game over.
Shut up. Play the game. Play it from your heart.
26 years ago, we started playing a little game. Now, we're all gonna sit down. We're gonna finish it.
And may the odds be ever in your favor.
And here we go.
Hello and welcome to Dice Camera Action, a mashup podcast about board games and movies where cardboard meets the silver screen. Each episode we like to review a board game, and then if you're a cinephile, you can stick around at the end for a discussion about a movie with similar themes. My name is Matt Cousineau, and sometimes to love someone, you got to be a stranger. And I've got a stranger with me today for the first time, guest host Isaac Hirschfield. Isaac and I first met at Gen Con. He was on the Dragon Egg Games team as the booth coordinator. Was that your official title, booth coordinator? I feel like I'm making that up.
Event coordinator.
Event coordinator. No, you did a great job for us, really set us up for success. So thanks, Isaac, for joining me today on the pod. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your connections to the board gaming industry? I know you've worked a little bit in the board game industry, but you're also a game designer. So just give us a quick synopsis of your connection to the industry.
Right. So my big debut was I did some event coordinating for the board Dragon Age Games. You know, I've from the ground up built that program for Dragon Age Games. Never gone to a con or anything before, so I went through the whole process of applying and then designing the booth and coordinating with everyone. So that was a lot of fun. Like you said, I'm also a game designer. I have a game that's signed to be published. I was planning originally on self-publishing that. However, things fell through, but I got more fortunate that I actually have a deal with an upcoming company that I'm not allowed to announce yet.
Sure, yeah.
That will come out. We'll announce it next year. So looking very forward to that.
And this will be your first published game, right?
That will be my first published game.
Okay.
But over the
I
last
was working on stuff, but
yeah. Well, then, so over the last 5 years, I've been diddling with trying game designs here and there. Nothing too polished except for this one that will be published. Looking very forward to that. But I'm avid playtester. I playtested and did some game development work with a couple other people. I do some side business through game development and social media management and community management with example is Frown Clown Games right now, who will be releasing Hairband. Should be coming to Kickstarter this year. So I've been doing a lot of work with Dickie Chapin over there.
Yeah, I've been following that project. You've been doing a great job promoting that and keeping people engaged. Yeah,
so just in general, I just love getting into the industry, getting my hands wherever somebody will let me. And also, I do a lot of demo work. I've worked for a bunch of companies going to Gen Con or going to PAX Unplugged and demoing games.
Very cool. So you're attending all of these cons this year as well, I assume?
Actually, not this year. I'm still going to Gen Con. I'm actually going into Gen Con as a consumer for the first time. I've always worked it, so I'm excited to actually play games rather than teach for 4 days straight. So that's really exciting. But I'm actually not going to cons this year because hopefully next year when my game starts ramping up, I'll go to all the cons to promote it. So I'm trying to save some money right now.
Yeah, fair enough. It's not cheap to go to all these events.
Yeah,
but
when I work for a company, I make money, but still have to pay to get there and stuff. So the cost isn't exactly efficient. So always, so got to save some money
for sure.
But I'm still gonna have some fun this year. So I'm excited.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I'm excited for it. You and I met at Gen Con last year. I guess it's been coming up on not quite a year, but 9 or 10 months since we met, and we hit it off right away. I think the whole group there was really fun, and I think we had a really great time. And I've heard you guest on a few podcasts and kind of be a face in the industry here and there. So I thought, it'd be fun to have Isaac on. And then you and I started discussing what game and or movie we wanted to have on. You threw me a bunch of suggestions, and then I remembered that at Gen Con, your brother had purchased this little card game. And I remember looking at it going, it looks kind of cool. But like, as you do at Gen Con, you see a million kind of cool things and, never got a chance to really look at it or whatever. And then I remembered a little while after Gen Con, Compile had hit my radar again. I forget where or how, but I saw it somewhere or online or whatever the case is. And I thought, that's the game that Isaac and his brother were looking at Gen Con. And so I ended up picking it up. It got really hot. I think Shut Up and Sit Down did a review, which always just like will kind of launch a game into the stratosphere in terms of popularity. So they've done a really good job with this game. I'm excited to dive into it. And then we thought, like, what could we possibly pair with that? Well, the theme is kind of AI. I think the theme, and honestly, I have not read into it very much, but my understanding is that it's a 2-player game, and each side is playing the role of an AI, battling to form the new world or something like that. Do you have a better handle on the theme of the game or no?
So I also haven't read on it because I tried not to. So
right.
all the things I'll say are kind of my misguided opinions.
Sure, yeah.
But I also got the idea that we are AI. That's definitely the feel I got for it. But maybe we're undeveloped and we're trying these protocols to see if this will form our identity, and our protocols that form our identity are in contest with your opponent's protocols. So we have to basically see how we develop in a competitive kind of limited space. Right. Something like that.
Yeah, so like the box is like shiny and black and gray with like a shiny kind of foil purple with like, very digitized and microchippy and that kind of thing. So it's a cool little box. If you're watching the video, I'll show you kind of what it looks like here. So really neatly little designed box with, not a huge amount of cards in the box, but what you can do with it is really cool. And they've done a really good job with this little package and its presentation. So honestly, just based on the feel and look of the game, I thought, let's go something that's like, neon sci-fi, dystopian, futuristic, with some AI stuff. And, we shot some ideas back and forth. I know The Matrix came up. That's a movie that at some point we have to cover. It's, gun to my head, it's probably my favorite movie of all time. Although there's probably 5 or 10 movies that are my favorite movie of all time.
Sure.
But that's one of them for sure. But gun to my head, if I had to pick one, it might be The Matrix. And then, there's other movies that kind of fit the category. Feel free to shout some out here too. But Westworld is I guess it is a movie from the 70s, but the more popularized HBO show that had been airing for the last, 5-6 years, whatever the case is, would be another decent kind of AI parallel there. Ex Machina is another one, Alex Garland movie that is one of my favorites. Anything come up to mind for you?
Well, you have it written down in the notes, but Her was one of the first things that came to my mind too.
Yeah.
Just love the discussion about, in that movie, that could be a whole nother subject, but the idea of an AI learning companionship rather than learning to fix problems, which I thought was a really great spin on that genre, because usually AI is about how it's going to kill us all, and that kind of went the other direction with that movie, which was kind of interesting.
Yeah, I love that movie. It was one of my favorite movies of that year, 2012-ish, I want to say. Starring Joaquin Phoenix and Scarlett Johansson's voice. Basically, I think she's a an operating system, I think, is how it starts. And she's kind of a companion, and she's just a voice that's on his devices, Joaquin Phoenix's devices. They end up kind of forming a relationship and falling in love, and and kind of really explores the themes of, as Blade Runner does a little bit too, especially in the 2049 version, explores like if an AI develops to the point where it has feelings and thoughts and opinions, like at what point does it become a real consciousness, or is it still just a machine that doesn't deserve your respect? All right. So those are all kind of the themes that are jumping out to me, that we can get into a little bit more as we discuss the movie.
I know this is about movies and board games, but there's a couple video games that came to mind instantly too when I played this compile. So I'm going to talk about them super briefly.
Yeah.
Small short one called Thomas Was Alone. It's a platformer, and you just play as polygons that are trying to jump from platform to platform. But it's basically the characters are AIs that were built in this small environment, and they're given challenges to see how they react to these situations. So conceptually, what you're seeing is how the AI is interpreting it, but even though it's supposed to be intangible. So they get each of these little AI blocks have these different personalities, and therefore how they accomplish the tasks are different, which is really interesting. Feels very much like Compile, except in a more wholesome way.
Right.
And then another one that came to my mind was Cyberpunk 2077. That has tons of stuff about AI in it. There's a whole black wall, just like rogue AIs, just in this entire city that is blocked off from the rest of the real world, because if they got out, they would just destroy everything. And then there's also a character that you throughout the game you interact with, and you think it's an AI, but the more you interact with it, you find out it's just like a really, really advanced algorithm, which kind of plays along what you were saying. The idea
like,
is,
what's the difference?
What's the difference exactly? Which we can talk about more. So anyway.
Cool. Yeah. And then I had a couple of parallels to games that that I think are maybe a little bit more on the nose or obvious than the ones that you mentioned. One of which being Marvel Snap. So Marvel Snap is like very, very similar to this game. It's just a lane battler, and you're playing cards into specific lanes, and then those cards, as you know, have ongoing abilities, play abilities, reactive abilities, and all sorts of things. And when you're playing in the digital world, it's a lot, I don't want to use the word easier, but like you could do a lot more with it, right, than you can do with a card game that's on a table. So that game gets wacky and kind of, you know, some of the turns go really long because there's all sorts of different reactions and different things. So if you played Marvel Snap, you have a little bit of an idea of what Compile might be. And then the one that I think predates both Marvel Snap and Compile is Air, Land, and Sea. Have you played that?
I have not played it, but I've seen it played. So, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, really neat little game. Basically, it's a World War II. They also have like they republished it and reskinned it as like an anthropomorphized animals with like big bazookas and guns and stuff to make it a little bit more fun and maybe kid friendly. Whereas the original Air, Land, and Sea is a World War II themed game where there's 3 arenas or 3 lanes: air, land, and sea. And then there are 18 cards in the game. You shuffle and deal out those cards to the 2 players. Again, it's a 2-player game, and then you take turns going back and forth playing cards into air, land, or sea, and then you can only play the air cards in the air arena, the land cards in the land, and the sea in the sea. But you can also play the cards face down, and there's like in which case there's no ability on the card. It doesn't do anything other than give you power or points towards that arena. And the goal in that game is just to win 2 out of the 3 arenas. The one really neat thing from Air, Land, and Sea, which is a thing that Marvel Snap copied, is that you can, to win the game, you need 12 points. And if you win 2 out of the 3 arenas, you get 6 points. Unless the loser quits or like bows out of the round. So if they see that things are not going well, they can quit. And the earlier you quit, the less points your opponent gets. So instead of getting 6 points, they might get 4 or 3 or 2 if you quit really early. So if you look at your hand, you're really not happy with it, you might play a couple cards and go, you know what, I'm out, and I'll give you the 2 points. That's fine. And then you go to the next round. So it's really about gauging where you're standing and, you know, in this round, and whether or not you feel like you have a really good shot at winning. And that's a really neat thing that it does, is that it makes both players can feel really good in that moment, right? Like, I bowed out, I quit, and I denied you 4 points. You're only getting 2. Meanwhile, you won the round, so you feel good about winning the round. So it's kind of neat what it does there, and it really rewards your ability to read the game. And the really neat thing about that game is it's one of these games, it only has 18 cards in the whole game. So you get to know them really quickly. So you do the math in your head. Like, I've got these cards, which means that, and I think there's like 2 or 4 cards that don't get dealt in. So there's always a little bit of a mystery of some cards that might not be in the round. But yeah, so it really rewards, like, if you play that game multiple times, like a dozen times with the same person, it's a super short, quick game as well. So it's easy to do that. You get to know these cards really well, and you can kind of, by process of elimination, know what's coming. And the more you know about the cards, the more of that like tension of the back and forth really comes into play, and quitting early and all that stuff. So it's a really, really neat game. And I want to say Compile is just almost exactly that same game. It doesn't have the tension of like quitting in a round and denying your opponent points. So it doesn't have that component to it, but it's basically Air, Land, and Sea, 3 kind of arenas that you're playing cards into. You can only play certain cards into certain arenas, or what are they called in this game? Protocols. Yeah. But it's basically Air, Land, and Sea on steroids. Like, there's just way more to it, and each card does more than one thing. Right. So we'll get into all of that. But yeah, Air, Land, and Sea is another really, really great game. And I would highly recommend it. It's tons of replayability too, and it just does something a little bit different than Compile does. But it's neat that they can kind of iterate on this kind of genre of game that we've seen already. Like, you know, just in the last 10 minutes, we've talked about like 5 of them. So,
right.
Cool. So before we jump into a kind of deeper dive into the game, let's do some shout outs. So we like to just talk a little bit about some of the games and movies or TV, books, video games, whatever we've been kind of digesting of late. So Isaac, you want to start us off with a shout out?
Yeah, so I got a couple shout outs. I want to first shout out a board game from one of your previous guests, Andrew Stills, made Wine Cellar. And I've been playing the crap out of that game.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
It is. So obviously I'm biased. Andrew is a dear friend of mine. However, this game to me is just such a delight. It's so easy, quick. You know, I've played this with non-gamers, and they said it was overwhelming until we started playing, and they're like, wait, this was actually not hard at all. And despite being very rules light, it has a lot of small micro decisions and tension where you like, oh, do I, do this or do I do this? Basic rundown of the game is you have a set of 8 wine bottle cards, and on your turn, it's simultaneous turn action. You all use one of your wine bottles to bid to get one of the prize bottles, and then that's a turn order bid. And then when you take one of the wine bottles, you're going to put it into your wine's rack, and you either have to put the wine bottle on the top of your rack or on the bottom of your rack. And that because of that, you have to sequence your cards because each wine bottle card, you get points at the end of the game for its age, right? So if you put it at the top, it's in the first position. That's how many points you get, and then the bottom of your rack, whatever it's going to be in your 8th position, you get that many points, and the points vary based upon each card has its own aging, what it was best to drink, sort of thing.
Okay.
And then there's also some set collecting in it. So you have all these small decisions of do I take this one because I can put it on the bottom of my rack? Do I put this on the top? Or do I try and get this one because it goes along with my set collecting? So a lot of small fun decisions there. Very fast, very easy to teach. Can pick it up and play it with up to 8 players. So it's very portable and easy to get to the table.
Awesome. Yeah, I have it in my cart. I haven't pulled the trigger yet because I'm waiting for my cart to fill up a little bit for that all important free shipping. But I have it ready to go, and I'm excited to check it out. We talked about it a few times, not in depth or rules or anything, but Andrew's been on the pod a few times, and I'm really excited to play it and check it out. And I'm really happy for him as well. He's kind of given this game designer thing a real shot in a brave way that I don't think I could do. But yeah, he's kind of doing it full time, and right. He's got his hands all over this industry, and this is officially his first game that is published and available to the public. So congratulations to Andrew for that, and I cannot wait to see it on my table. Yeah,
for a debut, he nailed it. Just excited to see what else he does. I've play test with him here and there all the time. Mm-hmm. I just play tested him last week, and I already really liked what we play tested. So definitely looking forward to that, to seeing what he does in the industry more.
Yeah, he's a really smart guy, and added bonus that he's a great dude too. Like, he's just awesome to be around and work with. And he and I have worked a little bit on some stuff on the side. Nothing that's very advanced, but we worked together a few times, and it was a delight. And looking forward to continuing working with him and having him on the pod again. And he's just a really great dude. All right, so my first shout out, I want to talk about a game called Art Society. Have you heard of or played Art Society, Isaac?
Yes, I own it, and my wife and I play it quite a bit. It's good.
Okay, cool. So I've only played it 2 or 3 times. So yeah, it's a really neat game. It's gorgeous. Is probably the first thing that comes to mind. But basically it's about being a snooty, nose in the air art collector. And each player is given a sheet that looks like a wall. And then your goal is to fill this wall with art. And then there's a ton of art pieces in varying sizes in the box. And then everybody's given a stack of cards, which are your bidding cards. So it's kind of an auction game. The neat thing about this is that you have, I think, 20 auction cards. And once you use one, it's gone. So if I use my 20 to buy something, I no longer have the 20. I have to work with 1 to 19. And so as the game goes on, you spend more and more of these, and then your options become more and more limited. And if you're paying attention to what your opponents have used, sometimes you can use that deduction to, go after a specific piece that you want, knowing that maybe they can't afford to beat you. So it's kind of like you have a finite number of discs that you can use, or cards that you can use in the auction. And the other game that does that is High Society, which is a really neat one. You have like a deck of money cards, and as you use them, they're just gone. You don't have access to them anymore. So it's a kind of a neat way to do the auction thing. And then, in reverse order from the person who bid the most down to the person who bid the least, they can then draft from the pieces of art that have been put out in front of us for this round. And then each piece of art is either a different type of art. So there's like landscape, still life, portraits, and nature or something. I think are the 4 different types. Maybe I'm not quite right on that, but something along those lines. And then there's also 4 different types of frames. And so there's rules where you cannot, you can, but you don't want to put 2 pieces of art that are the same type side by side, because if you do, they cancel each other out for scoring. But you do want to match as many matching frames as possible into a group, because that gets you bonus points. So you really, the game's pulling you in kind of a couple of different directions when you're drafting the pieces. And the tension really comes when the pieces are laid out in front of you at the beginning of the round. You have to choose how much you want to bid to take the first choice. And then you look at the table, and sometimes there's a piece that you absolutely need. Is the perfect piece for the perfect spot on your wall, and you need it. So that's when you might bid higher. Whereas like sometimes you're like, oh yeah, I could take or leave any of these, so maybe I'll just bid low. And that's where the tension of the like efficiency of what you're going to use to bid and build your wall and that kind of thing. There's a little bit more to it than just that, but that's the crux of it. Anything to add on Art Society, Isaac?
So my biggest criticism is also my big favorite thing about the game.
Okay.
Is when it's your turn to choose what paintings will be bid on. Especially when you don't know the game that much. You're like, I don't know, this one and this one and this one, and you don't know what it is. So just to
back up for a second, like at the beginning of each round, it is a person's turn. I think it just goes around the table to choose what we're actually going to be bidding on. So you reach into the box and you can choose what size painting you want. I don't think you get to see the front of them, right? You just get to choose the sizes, correct?
Yeah, you don't see the front, you just see the sizes.
Right.
So we got the number of panels that it covers, and then whether it's tall or wide, sort of thing.
Right. So I agree 100%. Like I've only played this, I want to say 2 or 3 times. So it feels very arbitrary and very random. Like, I don't know, I'm going to take this, this, and this. Like this is what we're bidding on, because I don't know why. But you've played probably more than me.
Right. So I agree. And that's exactly one of my biggest criticisms. At first, it feels just like a non-choice. You're like, this looks like a cool shape, right? But as you play more, especially when you get to the end of the game, you can look over at your opponents and be like, you didn't plan out your spacing well, and we didn't put out the big paintings till now. So now I'm going to put all the big paintings out, and you can't choose any because it won't fit on your board anymore. So that it feels arbitrary at first, but to me, especially near the end of the game, it becomes an even more interesting decision that helps you pay attention to what your opponents are doing.
Yeah, I wonder if the designer chose that the random kind of the fact that it doesn't really matter that much in the first half of the game. They sacrificed that feeling for the extra tension that this mechanism brings for the like second half of the game, let's say. Exactly. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, Art Society. I really enjoyed my 2 or 3 plays of it. I played it with my 8-year-old and my 5-year-old. So it's a game that like, though maybe they didn't do super great, they're able to play and learn and get better at it. So the rules are fairly simple. The strategy is there still, and there's still quite a bit to chew on there for a game. And the big thing with this is that it's beautiful. Like the art pieces are great. The components are great. And at the end of the game, you've built this like gorgeous wall of all this art, and it feels very satisfying. It's one of those games where at the end of the game, you're like, I built this and it's cool. Right. And you're happy with it. So, and the first time I think I've ever seen a box cover be dual layered. So the box cover is gorgeous. And it's actual dual layered. So it's actually like the painting, there's a whole bunch of paintings on the cover, and the paintings are recessed behind the frames. So kind of a neat little touch. I don't know if it was, as putting my publisher hat on, I'm thinking like the extra cost of that, like, is it worth doing that? Is that going to grab enough attention for people to actually buy the game, or is it just a kind of a wasted cost?
If you get put on a shelf, put on a shelf like your Kyperium game back there, right? And it's front facing, and you see a box that has texture, you better believe I'm gonna pick it up and touch
Pick it up and touch it. Yeah,
I'm gonna pick it up and touch it. So I think, depending upon where it is, it's gonna be worth it.
yeah, and it's a game about art and presentation. Yeah. So, like, for them to take the art and presentation of the box more seriously, I think is makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
All right, let's get another shout out from you.
So I haven't been watching a lot of movies recently, but I've been visiting walking simulators, and I know once again this is a video game discussion, but
yeah,
where I feel like this makes connection is so walking simulators. I don't know if people are familiar with that. It's technically a video game where you're controlling some sort of narrator, and you control the pace of them walking through this story. Maybe you have some interaction, maybe you press a button just to open a door or something, but for the most part, you are progressing forward a movie, but you have the onus of how that progresses. So
are you handling? Is it a little bit of a choose your own adventure, or are you mostly just handling the pace of the story?
That's a good question. Depends upon the walking simulator. Some of them are choose your own adventure. Okay. A lot of them are. This is the narrative. It's linear. However, there's some side stuff that you can sequence how they trigger. And you can power through the main story and just interact with the only main stuff, or there's some extra stuff to get more context to certain parts of the story. So the one that I've been really into visiting again, it's called What Remains of Edith Finch. Once again, walking simulators were great. It gives you an illusion of choice and a sense of control. Yet it gives to me a greater depth to feeling the story. Unlike a movie. I mean, I love movies, don't get me wrong, but it feels more immersive when you are moving it forward. So What Remains of Edith Finch is about this young woman that is pregnant, and she revisits the house that she grew up in. This is a very dark, yet I would say hauntingly beautiful story about how through a series of very unfortunate events, each of her family members pass away, usually in a very tragic sense. So you go to visit the house that she grew up in, and as you go through this house, you go room to room, and it's not like you just open the door. It's like you have to use like hidden passageways, because like you don't know what this history is at first, but like these doors are locked or they're barred or there's spray foam in all of the cracks, so you can't go through this certain area. And you have to use all these hidden passageways to go room to room. And then when you go into the room, you get to relive the tragedy of that family member passing away. And each of them passed away in a very different way. It's not a game for people that want a lighthearted time, because it's very tragic and there's a lot of very heavy stuff in it. But it gives you a lot of this interesting messaging on, what is, trying to reconcile your meaning of life in death, which is really interesting. And, and she's pregnant, so she's trying to learn, do I want to bring life into this world, knowing that ultimately everyone will pass away. And it's a little hard to play through sometimes, but just because it's so heavy, but it's actually such a beautiful piece. There's a lot of very good storytelling in it. And it lands in a place that's not super dark, but which kind of gives you that kind of ultimate depression, but with a little cathartic ending of knowing that there's hope for the future. And I would recommend
silver lining.
Yeah, I would recommend it to anyone that has some patience, because you have to push the story forward yourself.
How many hours is a walking simulator? Because is this something they're doing for weeks at a time, or?
Depends upon the game. Off the top of my head, I don't know how long Remains of Edith Finch. What Remains of Edith Finch is, because I haven't finished it yet. But they're not full game length usually. Usually they're between 10 and 20 hours.
Okay, so still fairly long, yeah.
It also depends on how much you care about trying to do the side stuff. I played another one called Gone Away, which I powered through in 6 hours, but you could play it longer. Firewatch, it's really open, so that's another really good one, Firewatch. And you can get lost in the world looking around. That's a little bit longer, 20 hours.
But the difference between something like this and like another open world game like GTA or whatever is that this is like firmly about the story. This is story driven.
Story driven. Yeah. You're not collecting things. You're not fighting things. You're finding out what the story is and seeing how it progresses through the lens of a character.
Right. So we've seen like it's reminding me of movies and or TV shows that are like one shot or presented to be one shot. Like 1917 was a popular one from a few years ago. Was maybe my favorite movie of that year. And then recently there was a TV show called Adolescence. I don't know if you've seen that. But it's a 3-episode, 1 hour episode about a 13-year-old boy. And in the very first episode, basically the police crash into his house and arrest him on suspicion of murder. And he's like, what? Like, what's going on here? And the parents are like, freaking out. And they basically arrest him, bring him down to the station, interrogate. They go through the processing and all that and the emotions of the family and whatever. But the hook and the thing that I think is really interesting is that each of these 3 1-hour episodes is in one shot. So it's essentially like sort of like a play, but they move locations and obviously there's camera involved. It's not in front of an audience in a very controlled area, right? Like it's something they probably would have had to rehearse. They get into vehicles, they go to a different location. There's drone shots involved. Like it is very, very, the logistics of how to shoot something like that are like mind blowing.
Love that.
And the amount of skill involved there. And like, if you screw up one line near the end and you got to reset, like there's a ton of pressure there as well. But all that to say, like, you see more and more of these, and Birdman was one from a handful of years ago that was presented as one shot. And like Birdman in 1917 present as one shot, but there's like breaks and they hide edits, right? So they only do like certain small sections at a time, then they stitch it together and it presents as one shot. Whereas Adolescence, each episode was legitimately one take, which is unbelievable. But
I also think of go ahead.
No, I was just going to say what that does is it's way more immersive because there's no cuts. It builds tension. There's something in the editing that gives the viewer kind of permission to breathe and to like exhale. But especially if the content of the show or movie is very intense, you just like it is in Adolescence or 1917, the tension builds and builds. And because there's no cuts or editing, it feels way more immersive. It feels like you're there with them, right? Because you don't have that like extra layer of like, oh yeah, this is a TV show. It's a lot more immersive and involving. And so it really kind of grabs your emotions even stronger. And the reason I bring all this up is because it seems like the next step beyond that is for you to be able to control the camera and control the pace of the story. And it sounds like this walking simulator is kind of that next step beyond this like one take movie or episode.
Yeah, it's definitely not for everyone, but it is an interesting thing if you like what you're saying. Another thing along that line, I always think of that Black Mirror Bandersnatch episode.
Yeah, that was a weird one.
So it's a choose your own adventure, but like the whole point is so it gives you feel like you have control, but in the end, the story is what it is, and it kind of gives you that despair that you're trying to choose, but like ultimately bad stuff happens no matter what you do.
Yeah.
So if you like that feel, it's not everybody does, but if you do, I mean, that's kind of the idea of a walking simulator.
Nice. Yeah, Bandersnatch was interesting. Huge fan of Black Mirror, one of my all-time favorite TV shows. But that episode, I guess it's not an episode, it was kind of presented as a one-off movie
Yeah.
kind of on the side of their normal seasons. But I thought the swing that they took by doing that was really interesting. And the execution of it was really great. Like, they did a great job with it. The story, and ultimately I didn't think it was successful. It was successful as an experiment, I think,
right?
But as a TV show or as an entertainment experience, I don't think it quite hit it. But I do appreciate the swing that they took there with that. Very cool. So that's kind of a little bit of insight into walking simulators, which isn't something I'd ever heard of before. So that's interesting. Thanks for sharing that. So the last kind of shout out that I want to talk about is a movie called Sinners. Have you heard of Sinners, Isaac?
No, I haven't heard this one.
No. Okay. So it's a very popular movie in theaters right now, or at the time of this recording, I should say. Directed by Ryan Coogler, who famously directed the Black Panther movies.
Oh, I've seen a trailer for this. I haven't.
Yeah. And then he also directed the two Creed movies, I believe. So those are his more popular movies. And I think for the first, he did do one other kind of smaller indie movie that did like do really well awards wise, and then like the kind of in the on that side of things, like the art house side of like film, or the cinephile side of film, not necessarily the popular culture, right? And I'm trying to Fruitvale Station, I think it was what it was called. But anyways, so this is his first time with a bigger budget doing a wholly original movie. And I don't want to go too much into detail of like what the plot is, because it's like, I wouldn't want to spoil anything. So I'll just talk about what's in the trailer. But basically, Michael B. Jordan plays twins, identical twin brothers. In the 1930s, late 30s, early 40s, they are war veterans who, when they came back from the war, I believe went to like Chicago and partook in like the like gangster Al Capone kind of gangster lifestyle. And then at the very start of the movie, they come back home to like a smaller Black community, where the main industry is like cotton picking. And this is like obviously post-slavery, so that's not necessarily part of it, but obviously racism and segregation and all that stuff is still a huge kind of theme and importance in the movie. So they decide they buy a property, which was, I believe, originally a killing floor, but it looks like a big barn of some kind. And they want to they're going to build a bar and throw a huge party. And that's kind of what they're doing. So the first half of the movie is them setting all this up. And then the second half of the movie is them like at this location, at this like building, this bar, where they like music and card games and dancing and drinking and, everything that goes with it. And the best comparison that will help you kind of understand what this movie is From Dusk Till Dawn. So basically the first half of the movie is one thing, and then the second half of the movie is a completely other thing. But basically, it's kind of the second half of the movie is this one location, this like, bar or barn or whatever in the middle of nowhere. And then unwanted visitors come, and then they have to deal with that. So there's lots of, obviously important themes, of that time, and there's, those issues don't necessarily go away in 2025. Right. So, especially in the world that we live in today, without getting into too much into politics, but just like very relevant themes of segregation and race and belonging and that kind of thing. So yeah, great movie. I don't want to say anything more than that because there's some really big surprises that I think the movie is way better if you don't know them. So suffice it to say, it's kind of like a horror thriller movie that's also a mashup with like a gangster film that's also a mashup with like a deep South racist and like, you know, KKK and that kind of like war or conflict. So again, I don't want to say too much more, but this is so far my favorite movie of the year, and I would be very surprised if it didn't make my top 10 by the end of the year. Absolutely love this movie, and I'm planning on going to see it a second time in theaters. Is that good?
Oh wow, yeah, definitely. You know, even before we talked about it, something that I do want to see at some point for sure.
Cool. All right, so that wraps up our shout outs. Let's get into the main game review of the episode. So Compile, and I guess it's called Compile Main 1. So I guess the plan was, and I did notice that they have Compile Main 2 becoming available soon. I don't think you can kind of buy it quite yet, but the game is called Compile, and then this is the first main box, I guess is what it is. And then there's one auxiliary pack is what they call it that you can buy that has like 3 more what are they called again? The protocols, thank you. 3 more protocols that each come with 6 cards that match that protocol. So you can buy, you know, 15 or I guess close to 20-ish more cards to add to the main box. And then it looks like there's a second box that you can buy shortly. That I don't think is available at the time of this recording. And there's also, I think, an auxiliary to that box that you can buy, a mini expansion you could buy for that box. So we're going to be reviewing today Compile, the main box for the, you know, without expansions or anything. It was published in 2024 by Greater Than Games, designed by Michael Yang, art by Nolan Nasser and Alan Panikal. It's a 2-player only game, plays in 20 to 30 minutes. The BGG weight is 2.18, and it's currently an 8 rating on BGG. So pretty solid. And I don't think that's a small sample size either. No, it's 1,200 ratings. So definitely a huge sample size there. So it's probably a good indicator of the quality of the actual game at this point. Cool. So I guess let's get quickly into how the game plays. So, again, the theme is that you play 2 AIs, and I'm just going off the top of my head here, but I'm fairly certain it's 2 AIs, and each AI is competing to form or shape the new world. I think it's just a quick line of text that more or less says something along those lines. And so the way that you do that is that the deck or the game comes with, I'm actually going to count them up right now. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 protocols. They're called metal and darkness, spirit, psychic, plague, fire, light, speed, death, life, gravity, and water. And then each of those 12 protocols come with a small 6-card deck that kind of give that basically have a theme, and not just like a theme in terms of like the theme actually crosses into how that deck actually plays. So each of these protocols will say that, like, water, for example, is good at returning cards, drawing cards, and flipping cards. And the gravity one is good at shifting cards, flipping cards, and drawing cards. And so they're all kind of good at different things in varying degrees, and they all have a little bit of a different personality in terms of what they do. Now, at the beginning of the game, you lay out all 12 of those protocols, and then you draft them. So if I go first, I'll draft 1, then you'll draft 2, then I'll draft 2, and then you'll draft 1. So we each end up with 3, and then we lay them out on the table, my 3 facing me, and then your 3 facing you, and that creates 3 lanes. How am I doing so far? Is that making sense?
Yeah. Did you play with one of the mats? Or do you
No,
just
I
play
didn't
it
have
on
a
your
mat.
table?
No.
Yeah, so my brother bought the mat.
Okay.
And it's, completely unnecessary, but what it does is it helps you visualize the lanes a little bit
Right.
easier, so it makes it a lot more concrete to have that board. But super unnecessary. But otherwise, you're saying it correct so far.
Makes sense. Okay. So then what you do is that you've now drafted 3 protocols. So you take the 6x3 18 cards from those protocols, you shuffle them up, and then that's your deck for the game. And then when you're drafting these, and I've played this game now 3 times. So just in I want to say my 3rd game, I started to grasp some of the ways that these different protocols, these different decks could maybe jive together, work together, combo together, that kind of thing. But definitely was not at the point yet where I was like, oh, I definitely want to pair this with that. If I can't get that, I want to use metal and whatever, right? Or if somebody plays water, I definitely want to counter with fire or whatever. Like, I don't know those things yet. But I imagine that, fast forward 6 months, I will have played this another 15, 20 times and I will be at that level. And that's kind of the plan. With these types of card games, right? So what happens? You draw 5 cards, and then you go back and forth, playing cards, or drawing cards, or compiling. Those are the 3 things that can happen on your turn. So each of these cards has a power number at the top. They, for the most part, range from 0 to 6. And as a general rule, what I've noticed is that they go from 1 to 6. 0 to 5. And then some of them don't have one of the numbers, but they have a 6. So they vary a little bit, but they're primarily go from 0 to 5. But again, these different protocols are trying to do slightly different things. And then each card has 3 sections on it, 3 sections of text. Now, on some cards, some of the sections are blank. On other cards, it's just 2. And on some other cards, all 3 sections have text in them. Now, the top section is a ongoing ability. And then what you do is when you play cards into a line, you play your first card down. And then when you play your second card, you're going to layer it on top of the first card, but you're going to leave that top text available and open to read. So you're not going to cover the very top of the card. And then the middle section of each card. So no matter what, when a card goes onto the board, if it has text in that very top section that might say, every time X happens, draw a card, right? So it has ongoing abilities. The middle section of the card is like an immediate ability. So draw cards, destroy cards, delete cards, return cards, do different things, flip cards, that kind of thing. So you do it when you play that card, you do that action right away. And then the very bottom section of a card also has text, or sometimes has text, and that's also typically another ongoing ability. However, when you play a card on top of that card, that section gets covered. So only the very top card in each line, that bottom section will be usable or available for you. Everything making sense so far, Isaac? Am I missing anything?
Yep. And that's what actually one of my favorite little clever things was the ongoing effect at the bottom of the cards.
Yeah, because it's great. But if you want to keep building that line with more points, you've got to cover it. So there's really a tension there of like, when do I cover that section? Because a lot of times,
love that.
In most cases, that section at the bottom is a good thing for you. You want it available. But then if you want to keep building on that line to gain the power, and that's how you win, is by gaining power in a line. And we'll get to that in a moment. But if you want to keep progressing towards the victory condition, you've got to cover that card, which then kills that ability. Right. So now, again, that's the kind of the construction of a card, or the anatomy of a card. It has a number at the top, ranging from 0 to 6. Then it has 3 sections that are available and do different things depending on when the card is visible and that kind of thing, as I just explained. The other neat thing about that middle section of the card, the one that activates when you play the card, I actually didn't say that properly, because it doesn't just activate when you play the card. It activates when the card is revealed. So the card is revealed when I play it. The card is revealed if a card that's on top of that card gets moved, returned, or deleted, right? Because then that card below gets revealed anew. So then it would trigger in that moment as well. So anytime that section of a card is newly revealed in any way, it triggers again. So that is really important, and something that only became apparent to me in my, I want to say, second or third game.
And flip cards too. So if a card
is
exactly.
So
Down,
that's actually
and then
something
flips it up, then it activates again.
So that's something that we actually didn't mention at all in the anatomy of a card, is that the back of each card has no text at all, but it has the number 2 on it. So you don't get any abilities, you don't get anything fancy, but it does give you 2 power for that line. And what you're ultimately trying to do is build 10 power in a line. Now, if at the beginning of your turn you have 10 power in one line, and you have more power than your opponent has in that same line across the way, you have to compile. So what that means is that entire line will get cleared, my cards and yours, and then I'll flip my protocol over to say I have achieved it, and now I'm 1/3 to victory, 1/3 the way to victory. And if I do that 3 times, all 3 of my protocols, that's how you win the game. So yeah, I can play a card face down for just 2 points for that line. It doesn't give me any abilities or anything else. But then maybe I play a card face down, because you can only play a card into its protocol. I guess that's something I failed to mention. So each card belongs to a specific protocol, a specific line. I cannot play it. I cannot play my water card into my, metal protocol line. But I can play it face down. So I can play it face down, and because I want power in that specific line right now, that's my focus. And then, I'm on my next turn, I play another card that allows me to flip a card. So then I flip it, revealing that middle text and activating that card. So you're right, Isaac. That's another way that you can reveal a card, is by flipping it. At the beginning of your turn, you check to see if you can compile. If you cannot compile, you have one of 2 options. You're either going to play a card in one of your 3 protocols, matching the card to the protocol, or you can refresh your hand, in which case you just draw up to 5 cards. And I think that's more or less the whole game of how you play. Did you play the advanced version with the quote unquote control card?
That was going to be the next thing I was going to mention. So
why don't you walk us through that?
The only other rule set you didn't explain was the control card, which nifty is the tells you how to play the game on the back, which is nice. But the control card, when you have a higher value, I forget what they call it, but the numbers in one of your lines is higher than your opponent's. All of the numbers, the values of the cards are higher in 2 lines, you gain the control component. So
this happens at the beginning of your turn. You check for control. Am I beating you in 2 out of the 3 protocols? If so, I gain control. Yeah.
And then when you either refresh your hand, which is your action to draw more cards, you can activate it. And also when you compile is the other time you get to activate it, which basically means that you pass in the control component, and then you get to swap the positions of 2 of the protocols. And now you can swap your protocol positions, or you can swap the protocol positions of your opponent. So let's say your opponent is getting close to getting enough points in one of their protocols, and you don't want them to do that. You can swap the positions of 2 of their protocols, and now they have to either figure out how to get the control component back to swap their protocol, or how to shift those cards to a different lane or whatnot. So what's really interesting about that to me, getting into some of the analysis, is It's one simple card, a very small set of rules, but it adds a lot of catch-up mechanism to me, which is really interesting. Have you played with it yet?
I have, yeah. Our third game.
Gotcha.
We introduced that, and it did a few things to the game that really brought it to another level. I would recommend maybe your very first game, don't play with it, just to get the rules down and the flow of the cards and everything. But as soon as you're comfortable with all the mechanisms, bring in that control card mechanism, because it adds a whole new layer of decision making and complexity that I think is like really important to taking this game to the next level.
Keeps it a lot more competitive.
It wasn't overly, not to say that I wasn't overly impressed. I was really enjoying the game. I thought it was really cool. And I'm like, oh yeah, this is right in there with, land, air, and sea and Radlands. Like it kind of fits into that lane battling 2-player, like back and forth. But as soon as I added that control card mechanism into the third game, I'm like, oh, okay, this takes the game from being really good to potentially excellent. Like it really elevates the gameplay and the decision making. So yeah, at the beginning of your turn, if you're controlling 2 of the 3 lanes, you gain the control to your side. And then that gives you the ability to mess with the protocols. And a neat thing is that you're trying to compile all 3 of your protocols. Now, if I've compiled already my water protocol, and this happened multiple times, and the other thing that this does, adding this, is it could elongate the game to way more than 20, 30 minutes.
Sure.
Yeah, because you could play a lot more defense, and really put your opponent in in positions to make really tougher decisions and having to make sacrifices. So I played against my buddy Matt at work the other night, and what happened was that I had compiled, I think, 2 of my 3 protocols fairly early in the game. But what happens is that he was able to kind of gain control and keep control for a majority portion of that game. And every time I got close to compiling my third one, he would, refresh his hand with control, which allowed him to rearrange my protocols. And he would rearrange them in such a way where I ended up having to recompile a protocol I had already compiled. Right. So what happens is the whole lane gets cleared as normal. I lose all those cards in that lane, but I'm not compiling a new protocol. I'm recompiling a protocol I had already done, which does not advance my win condition.
Right.
The consolation of that is that I get to draw 1 card off the top of my opponent's deck, which, like, stealing that card feels really satisfying. And it's a nice little, like, it's a nice little touch that they add so that it doesn't feel too bad. So it's a really neat little mechanism that they've thrown in there it's just another layer of complexity and another layer. Complexity is not the right word. It's another layer of decision making, because it's not complex. It's not hard to grok or understand how it works, but it does give you a lot more control of the game. And so I was trying to set up, a move where I was going to be able to compile, and there was nothing he was going to be able to do about it. But in order to set up that move, I needed to regain control, because as long as he had control, as soon as I gained enough points to compile, all he had to do was refresh his hand and then rearrange my protocols. And then again, I would not be able to finish off the game. So I really needed to set it up so that I gained control and then threatened to compile. Because you compile at the beginning of your turn. And I love this mechanism and it comes through in a lot of games. And actually, it's one of the main components to what I think makes Kyperium my game. One of my favorite mechanisms for my game is the broadcasting of what's going to happen next turn if you don't do something about it. So you set yourself up in such a way where I'm going to be able to do this big move, but now it's your turn. Right. So now you got to stop me. You got to do something about it. Right. It does give you that opportunity, which I really appreciate.
Yeah, so I mean, we're going into sidetracking and talking a lot about this control component, but I really think it actually, like you said, really elevates the game. I think it does add complexity, but I think in a good way. I
Mhm.
think it really balances things out a lot in a game and any sort of card effect game, especially games that have that kind of LCG feel when you play cards.
Mhm.
There's going to be some effects that feel stronger than others, and I think the control rules really balance that out because when somebody you're trying to achieve three objectives, right? Compile all three of your your
Yeah.
lines, and as soon as your opponent does it for the first time, it feels really bad, especially because your cards get in that lane get deleted too.
Yeah.
But because of that, you're very much more likely to gain the control opponent immediately because they were focusing on compiling that line. So you lose that all those cards, but if you played it right, you will now have control because you were focusing on your other lines.
Yeah.
If you were going for the same line, you're just a fool. Now, so now you have this way to get back into the game immediately. You get it back, and it makes it incredibly easy to get your first compile right back because you have more cards, most likely in your other lines.
Yeah.
So you need to think. It shifts your strategy a lot to diversify your things, and it gives you a reason to once you compiled a protocol, you feel like, why do I play cards? I have these 6 cards for this protocol that I don't score for anymore.
Yeah.
What do I do with them? Well, you can use it. The utility of its powers become powerful. May become powerful, but it also gives you the a reason why you might want to still play them because it will give you control. Uh,
That's right.
so it really shifts a lot, and it also so yeah, no, I'll stop talking about the control component because we got a lot more to talk about, but I really found like that was essential for this game.
Yeah. After having used it, I thought I would never play it without it. Again, if you're playing this game for the first time, maybe your first game without it. But if you're already like an advanced card player, you've played lots of these like 2-player head-to-head card ability battlers, that kind of thing, just use it right away. It's really important to this game. And you're right. Like and we're still talking about this control component, but I just think it's so important to this game. The last thing I want to mention about it before we move on is that you're absolutely right. If gaining control is really important, especially on the defensive side of the game, but it makes it so that you can't just focus on one line to compile. Yes. So if I'm focusing really hard on one line, all you have to do is drop one card in each of the 2 other lines, you gain control, and then you're able to control the flow of the game and what happens a lot more from that position. So it really makes it that you can't just focus on one line.
Right.
You have to diversify. You have to try to gain control and keep control as much as possible, which slows down your compiling, but hopefully it makes it so that you're able to enact your strategy in a more concise way. The other thing that I want to talk about, what I think makes this game special, is that middle section of the card. The top section of the card and the bottom section of the card are kind of ongoing abilities that happen throughout the game, and they're neat and they're helpful. But I think one of the main cruxes of this game that makes it so great is that middle section, and the rule around the fact that it's not just when you play it, it's anytime it gets revealed. Right. So I had a deck that allowed me to flip cards a lot.
Right.
And
a lot of fun.
Yeah. And I also had a deck that allowed, it's called Death is the name of the protocol. Mm-hmm. And it allows you to destroy, or they call delete, a lot of your opponent's cards that have lower numbers. So it lets you delete all the 1s and 2s, or delete A1 or A2, or delete a top card. Just helps you delete some of your opponent's cards. And that helped a lot with me kind of trying to gain and keep control. But every time I did that, every time I deleted one of his cards, it revealed the text on the card underneath it. And then, he was able to over and over, and he had a deck that allowed him to play a bunch of face down cards. So the text read, and I forget which protocol it was, what it was called, maybe life or something like that. But every time that text was revealed, it said play a card face down off the top of your deck in each other lane. So he's constantly like, his cards were constantly reacting and putting out new cards as I'm deleting his. So there's a really fun kind of back and forth play with those cards. But I had a deck that allowed me to flip cards a lot. So I would play a card face down, and then I would, on purpose, choose a card that had a really good ability, play it face down in the lane that I wanted it of that power for, and then I was able to flip it later and reveal that ability and that kind of thing. So you're constantly flipping cards up and down and shifting cards, which reveals other text, which triggers new abilities. And so it's really fun to do these combos where I get to flip a card, and then that card tells me that I can shift a card over. So then I shift a card over, revealing another text. It gives me another ability. And sometimes not on purpose, but sometimes you set them up, and it's really satisfying and fun.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's kind of an interesting. The more you play it, the more meta you understand of it, and especially, and then it becomes so important for the drafting. The few times you play it, you understand which decks you're drafting, which can be kind of hard to do at first. Is trying to I don't know, this life sounds great. Who doesn't like gravity? But because of that, as you learn the effects, you learn what to draft based on what they're drafting, right? And in the end, I don't know, I'm no expert in this game, but I feel like in the end, you want something that has take that control. You want some sort of polarific deck, something that makes you draw more or put more cards out, and then you want something for self-control, something like about shifting and such. And I feel like if you get those three, you're going to be good to handle any situation. But one of my, I think, criticisms of the game is if you don't know what you're doing, you could easily draft things that are all the same, and then just you can not win because you haven't diversified your strategy. Or on the flip side, you can absolutely destroy and win super easily because you
focused on one thing.
One thing, and then the other person can't stop it.
They don't have the counter. Yeah.
Right. So the first couple of plays are going to be rough as you kind of learn them, but it kind of gets interesting as you're like, oh, you took death. Great. I'm going to take life. Like that's like the perfect example. That's actually one I have written down of, an example is like, like the control decks seem a lot stronger, but there's ways of getting around it based upon the revealing of the cards, like you said, which is really interesting.
Yeah, and that's exactly right, because I'm looking at it now and I didn't realize that life and death were actually literally opposites. I think that's genius. But death killed a lot of cards, a lot of low power cards. I'm looking through the life cards right now, and the 0 power card says play the top card of your deck face down in each line where you have a card. So as long as you already have a card in each line, you're getting 3 new cards down on the table with one play. Life number 1 says flip a card. So if there's a card with a really powerful play ability on the board, you could flip it face down and then flip it face back up. Or you could, after having played the 0, you played a bunch of face down cards. Well, then if you follow up with this one, you can flip up 2 of those cards, revealing a higher power and their abilities. So this is the life deck is one that will continue to advance your own board state, whereas the death one is the one that continues to kill your opponent's board state. So literally in that third game, I had death and he had life. I didn't realize it at the time, but because we were so new to this game, we're just like playing cards.
Sure.
But it just became very clear to me that that's exactly what had happened in that third game. And
it doesn't mean life automatically beats the death deck, because if you only have one card and I delete it, well, then the death beats the life deck, right? So
That's right. Yeah.
it's
Depending
there's
what else
still
is going on with the other
there's still some
protocols.
timing to it, so
For sure.
which is
For
interesting.
sure. Yeah. So it was only in that third game that we started the very start of understanding what we were drafting and why, and trying to combo things, and that probably not definitely not good at it yet, and not fully internalizing the combos and the counters yet.
Sure.
But we're just starting that, right?
Right.
So that was a real, that third game, I had this aha moment of okay, this game, there's more to this. It's definitely better than just good. Getting into great territory, and I'll probably need to play it another 3-4 times to really decide if this is a transcendent game, to use a term from the theme. Cool. So what are your favorite things about it? Is there anything specifically that stands out? I mean, we kind of went over the main mechanics, but is there anything that jumps out at you that you think makes this game special?
So unfortunately, you went over all my points already. So, so I really do like that there is some subtle combination strategies that you kind of find as you go, and you learn the cards more, and you learn what the decks more do. And there's some clever things that you can do in this game with flipping and shifting and the ongoing effects. I really like, we mentioned this, the tension that the bottom effects are active until you cover them. So that creates such a interesting tension of all right, if I play a card into this lane, I'm going to lose this ongoing effect. But you can position things to make that, to keep going with that, depending upon what other cards you have. For example, you can, I had a card that forces my opponent to discard a card. But then I have to flip it over because that's the rule of that end effect, is that you can force them to discard, but then you get rid of the effect by flipping it over.
Right.
But then I had another card that lets me draw a card whenever my opponent has to discard a card. So I made them discard a card, lets me draw a card, which then let me play a card, which let me flip that card back over, and now I have that effect again. So I could cascade that whole thing again once in my turn. So there was this one turn where I felt super clever. I'm like, oh, I'm going to set this up. I did it. I made them get rid of a card. I drew a card. I flipped that card back over, which then let me make them discard a card, which made that flip over. And then I draw another, whatever. Right. So if there's these moments where you're everything lined up, which feels really good. I also, a few other things. I think we talked a lot about the control component, so I won't talk about it too much. But I did like that the refresh action is you play a card. If you compile, you have to compile, which I think is really interesting.
And that takes up your whole turn. You don't get to do anything else.
That takes up your whole turn. I'm going to talk about that in a second. But then I like that drawing your cards is a decision, because I only have 2 cards, but I don't have a lot of flexibility with this. Do I instead take my turn to draw more cards? Which gives a whole nother avenue of tension where, do I do that now? Do I do that later? But then it also gives another avenue for card effects, right? Because this game doesn't have a lot of card effects. There's a small list. It's in the rules. These are all the things
you're
that
talking
you can
about.
Do
Keywords. You're talking about keywords.
Keywords. Yep. There's only so many keywords.
Yeah.
So anytime they make a new opportunity for you to learn to use these keywords is what's fun and clever that you can discover in this game. It's oh, there's not a lot of keywords. Oh, but this keyword means something differently, or it activates at this time, or it activates at this time, when I'm drawing cards or when I'm discarding cards or making my opponent discard cards. And I think that's what's most clever about this game. Not many keywords, but they're all impactful because they activate all sorts of different times.
Yeah.
And then the compile thing, where you have to compile, is very interesting to me because you can force an opponent into making an inopportune time to, unfortunately, get rid of all their cards by shifting, through the control component or some sort of shifting keyword caused them to move cards into a different lane, and now their turn is bust because they have to compile. Hopefully you made it compile in a lane, in a protocol they've already compiled, so they lose that turn, so to speak. So I think that's pretty interesting too.
Yeah, that happened to me on that third game that I played. My opponent did a really good job of gaining and maintaining control as I was trying to get my third protocol done. In the meantime, he was catching up. He got his first and his second protocols compiled, and so it was kind of a tie game at this point, and I had like taken a good lead at the very beginning of the game, and he was playing catch up, but he was able to gain control and keep control. And then as soon as I would threaten to compile, he would shift my protocols around, and then I would have to recompile, and I ended up compiling I think 5 or 6 times in that game. And you should, if you're doing things right, you should only need 3. But he did such a good job in playing defense. And again, if you get 10 and you have more than them in that line, you have to compile. So, I would just have no choice, and I would lose that whole line. I would get to steal one of his cards off the top of his deck. And so that was kind of neat to be able to play with a little bit of his abilities. And that opened up some fun combos. But it was really neat. The one potentially negative thing about that is that it can drag the game out. And I was fully engaged and like really into what was going on and trying to sequence things just so it didn't feel like a drag. It didn't feel like the game overstayed its welcome, but it might for some, depending on how you feel about these card games. Do you want it to just be a little filler 30 minute thing? Or if 2 really good players have the right combos, it can kind of get stretched out into this like slugfest, which I really appreciated. I actually had fun in the tension, and for me ended up being a positive. The game went 45-50 minutes, I think, but it was for me a good 45-50 minutes. For others, maybe not so. Maybe you don't want things to drag out. Maybe it just feels like a slog to you, but it depends on how you jive with these types of games. Right. Did you find that as well, variability in the game length?
Oh, definitely. The game got longer as we understood the game more.
Yeah, because now you're playing not just the cards, but you're playing the player, and you're playing the
player. You're playing which decks are we taking, which protocols are we choosing? When we sequence our card manipulations, messing with their plan by progressing your plan. When are we sequencing those? And then, you can get into some weird times where a bunch of players are going back and forth, and we're just trying to like set up our defenses rather than actually progress the game farther. Like, oh, you're going to be deleting all my decks. I'm going to put out a couple cards face down so you don't know what's underneath there. Do you want to flip my cards? Sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I think which I think is good, right? Because if you don't think about it too hard, it's fast, it's loose. There's a lot of things happen like, whoa, it's over. That was great. But then you're like, okay, no, I want to think about it more. And you can really set yourself up to do some really cool things. But that does make the game longer. But that's probably what you want. And that's why you're setting things up.
That's right. Yeah. Like this, I think this game can be whatever you want it to be. Maybe that's a little bit of a stretch.
It's not unicorns and rainbows.
What I mean by that is if you want to be super casual about it and not really get into the weeds and not really know the protocols very well, and like what we did our first 2 games just to get, because we were just in like, especially when I review a game, I want to get to know the game a little bit better. I'm less concerned about like winning and strategy. I just want to understand the nooks and crannies of a game. So
Matt, you can do both at the same time.
That's true. But with a 20-30 minute card game, I figured I'd be able to do both. And that's sort of what happened. Is in the first 2 games, I just shuffled up the protocols and dealt them out. We didn't draft because, like, what's the difference? We don't know what does what. We don't know the strength of anything. And then in our second game, we used the 6 protocols that we didn't use in the first game, just to explore the different ones.
I like that.
So we just dealt out the other 6 protocols. So we played with all 12 protocols over the course of 2 games. And then in that third game, when we felt we had like a fairly good understanding of how things worked without knowing the protocol super well, we drafted and we introduced the control component. So I thought that was the perfect progression to get an understanding of the nooks and crannies of this game. But what I'm getting to is that if you want to be super casual about it, pull this box out once every couple of weeks or once every couple of months or whatever, and then just shuffle up the protocols, deal them out, and play a couple of games. There's nothing wrong with that. You probably have a good time. But if you want to get into the weeds and you get together with a friend and the 2 of you play this game 25 times over the course of, a couple of weeks, you can get into the metagame and the counters and the combos and really, really play these intense 2-player games. And I think that's pretty nice, a nice feature about this as well. I'm really digging this game. I think this is a lot of times with these types of games, I end up being the more casual player unless I get obsessed with it or whatever. And I feel like this is a game that I want to get deeper into, especially after having played that third game that I played that I described of like the back and forth, and it went longer and we were like countering each other and we really had to like line things up for multiple turns ahead and sequence things. Like that tension was really, really satisfying for me.
Sorry, Kat is visiting.
All good.
I'm sure if viewers have been seeing her walk in the background a lot already, but she's now joined.
It's a feline friendly show. It's all good. The other thing I wanted to mention, which we didn't talk about, is just the presentation of the game. For those of you watching the video showing the box here, it's really sharp looking, pretty cool. It reminds me like stylistically is like the Matrix, right? Like there's it's shiny and it's got like motherboardy looking like details on it, microchip details on it, and then the cards themselves have, every single card has like foil finishings on the frames and stuff, so really sharp looking cards. The art does not stand out super, like it's fine, it's cool, it does exactly what it needs to do. The art is neat, but it's more the presentation of the graphic design and the foil finish that really has the game stand out.
Component wise, quality. Generally I'm not a fan of plastic cards, but it felt right for this game. I don't know, thematically it's got a texture too. Yeah. So it's tactile. I feel like paper wouldn't have been as good as what they chose for this. I don't know. It feels the right material. That's the word I was trying to find.
Right. There's, I want to say, a third of the box is empty, right? Like when you put the cards in, there's about a third of the box. So that leaves room for the expansions, also leaves rooms for sleeving. So I appreciate that. And then the rule book is just a page. It's not complex at all. The game is very simple. The rules are fairly intuitive. The keywords for me are all very intuitive. As soon as you kind of like read through them, they're all just make sense. It's intuitive. You're like, oh, shift. Okay, shift means I can move from one lane to another lane. That's it. There's a few key rules you need to make sure you understand if we want to get into a little bit of the nitpicky stuff. One thing that wasn't super clear, I mean, it's in there, but I think it probably should have been made a bigger point of that only the top card can ever be manipulated. So that's something that's super important, and in our first couple of games is a thing that we forgot or missed or whatever. So that's something that I think is really important, and I think maybe could be highlighted a little bit better in the rule book. That only the very top card can be manipulated in any way, but there are some edge cases. So the edge cases are if a card specifically says mentions a covered card or covered cards, then that means that card can target cards that are not on top. They can target cards that are underneath or covered, right? And then the other kind of like caveat to that rule is if the word all is used, which isn't it's in there, it's in the rule book, but we really had to like reread it and try to like read it out loud and be like, this is how you read it, right? Like we really had to take a moment to try to figure it out. And then I ended up going on BGG and searching it to get confirmation that that's what it meant. So there's a tiny little bit of like extra trying to figure it out that maybe could have been covered in the rule book a tiny bit better. So nothing major, but like, you know, whenever the word all is used or covered card is used is the only time a non-top card can be targeted by a card ability, which had a little bit of murkiness there in the rules. Another
example. There was another example of this. It was a card that said flip each other face up card. And, you know, if we're following the rules,
that is exactly the card that made us get our faces in the rule book and searching it and figure it out. Go ahead. But that's exactly our scenario.
If you follow strict by the rules, it's only going to apply towards uncovered cards, which, you know, but it's ambiguous. I think, unfortunately, that maybe it would have been more clarity just to say flip each other uncovered face up card, right? Because the default rules, it's only referring to uncovered cards. However, it still feels like
when you read the words each other, that feels like an exception, right? It feels like it's saying each other.
Right.
So that is exactly the card that had us scrambling.
It's talking about not flipping itself, right? That's the point of it. Saying that.
Exactly.
But like I don't know, it was really hard for us to understand that, and this is actually where I come into my first major criticism of the game. Major criticism, not because it's stopping me from enjoying the game. It's just I feel like the first time you play this game, you don't know what you're doing. You're going to do the rules wrong, which is crazy because the rules aren't that complex.
Yeah, very
it's
simple.
just like you said, that the active cards are the uncovered cards on the top of the stack, and that dictates so much of how these affect other cards, that if you don't conceptualize that well, you're just going to play the first game wrong. And I feel like publisher hat here, that when you have somebody play a game, you want that first game to blow them away, and you don't want them to have confusion. You want them to really appreciate and dig deeper into finding those combos and hidden strategies, not trying to fumble with trying to like, okay, flip each other face up card. Am I like all of the cards or just only the uncovered ones? And then if you forget that the very first time my brother and I played this game, we forgot that rule completely. So we were affecting all the cards. And I'm like, this isn't right?
No.
So this isn't going to stop a lot of people from appreciating this game, but there's going to be some people that I think, you know, maybe it's unavoidable, but I feel like there's going to be people like that game just didn't hit with me because it was confusing when in reality, it wasn't that complicated. But it, you know, just that little bit of clarity can sometimes
like if I
make it somebody not want to play a second time.
For sure. If I sit down with a friend and I just teach them the game, because now I know all those little things, I could teach them, we could play and have a great time, and the rules will not be an issue in that person's very first game. Right. So that tells me that it's not a rules issue. It's a rule book issue. Right. And it's not major, nothing major. There's a couple little minor things, but if that minor thing hits at the wrong time and you don't get it, and it can cause a little bit of an issue in your first game, which may cause you not to return to it, which, as you said, put your publisher hat on, not a good thing for sure. But yeah, these are, I want to say these are nitpicks, right? They're nitpicks of the rulebook. They're nitpicks of like one card, the text on one card. So
that
unfortunately,
card is overpowered, by the way. So powerful.
It's a good one for sure. If you set it up properly, it can really have a huge effect for sure. And then my final nitpick is that the cards, the protocol cards, are in the middle of the table, 3 facing me, 3 facing you. And when you compile one of those, you'll flip it over, and then again you're 1/3 way to victory. When you flip that compiled card over, it looks the same.
Yeah.
Like at a glance, the colors are the same. Basically it goes from having the word loading, water and loading in the middle, to not having that, and then the water just being at the bottom. But the color of the card and at a glance, the card looks identical on both sides at a glance. Right. So there's multiple times within a game where I'm like, which protocols do I have? Especially because they're shifting around. That's a major part of the mechanisms of this game, is that those protocols are moving around all the time. So at a glance, it's not easy at all to know which protocols I've already compiled and which ones I have not. So I think that
it's a UI thing.
The ones that have been done or haven't, I don't know how you would want to do that, but one side should be like black and white or something.
Yes.
So that when you flip it over, it is so obvious. So what we started doing is, once one was compiled, we'd flip it over, but we'd also rotate it 90 degrees so that we would know for sure which was which and which was already compiled.
This was already on my list too. And just, if you notice, the background looks pixelated on the loading side, and it looks clear on the other side, which is great. Thematically, it feels great. But
it is really cool.
Quickly, it's really hard to tell that. I think it'd just be easier, just like, I don't know, not have the picture in the middle. Maybe you have just the border and then it fills in or something.
Big, thick, bold borders or something where like it's just really easy to identify. Thing. Yeah. It's like thematically, it's great. It's perfect. In practicality, it just adds one extra little thing to try to keep track of that you shouldn't need to keep track of. So because as I said, 1/3 of the box is empty, I'm going to go either 3D print or buy or find some cool tokens to put on top of the card that has been compiled, so that it's easier to identify. So that and a little bit of the rule book and the wording on maybe just one card, honestly, that one each other card are probably all of my nitpicks for this. I don't really have a lot of negative to say about it. I think it's a really cool game, and I'm excited to like play 10 more times and get to the point where, like, when you draft a certain thing, I'm going to be like, oh, I got to get the counter to that. Oh, and then this one's my favorite. Oh, you took my favorite. Okay, I'm going to try to get the counter to that. Like, I'm excited to get to the meta point of playing this game.
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, I feel like I haven't played it that much where I'm good at the meta. I just know there's one. I know there is one.
We played enough to know it exists.
We know it exists. That's kind of where I am with the game. Once again, I'm going to say this as not as I dislike the game, but I do feel like there were some cards that just felt more powerful, especially in the context if somebody wasn't prepared for it. I'm going to come back to that card. I remember what card it was. This Plague 3. Specifically, it's flip each other card, face up card. To me, that gives you control, and it still gives you points. So, like, to me, it's not only giving you a card where you're progressing your own gain, but you're also harming your opponent's gain, right? So to me, like, there's a lot of cards that either progress you or put your opponent behind. But that was an example of card that did both. I mean, obviously, the easy counter to that is that you can
then flip yours
cards
too, though.
Sure.
Because this is flip each other card face up. So that's yours. I mean, you're playing.
So
playing with that in
particularly
mind.
for me, I had Plague, and I forget what the other deck I had, but it was a flipping deck. So it wasn't a problem for me. If anything, it actually benefited me because I could reflip them and then reactivate all my cards. I actually wanted to do that, but my opponent didn't have flip cards. They didn't draft flip cards at the beginning, and therefore, to me, it was super powerful because it benefited me and then shut them down. And that's where I think, once again, it's not a negative criticism. It's just more you need to know the game a little bit more to kind of make the game fair. I think a new player is going to be at a huge disadvantage
for sure, 100%. Yeah.
And I think
I will say, like, if you want to sit down and play a card game where the person who's played 15 times does not have an advantage over the new person, this is probably not the right game.
Not for you. Yeah.
Straight up.
That's fair.
So that's like, I agree with you. And as I mentioned, this game can be thrown down casually and be like, oh, I haven't played this in 6 months. Let's just hammer out a game. And neither one of us are overly familiar. And then maybe just the luck of the draw. I get the right combo and you don't, and I win. But in that case, it's a 20-minute game. We can re-rack and go again. And maybe next time you'll have a little bit better luck. But if you're casual players of this game, you probably don't care that one person had like the advantage, because you're playing it casually. So you're not wrong. That might be an issue for like new people, but like if you want to come to this game because of its depth, you probably don't. That's probably not a major concern.
Can I transition to actually one of my greatest what I love about this game?
Yeah.
Is you brought it up that I feel like a lot of this kind of has a collectible trading card game feel, or like an LCG feel. But because it's all contained and the keywords are only so expensive, there's only so many of them, and they're all different combinations of that I particularly found that I didn't like once people knew the game and we knew the different strategies, or at least started to, I thought the game was balanced, mostly balanced. And there was a lot of give and take, and we were going back and forth and trying to outmaneuver each other, which I really like. Unlike most games, to me, in this category, feel like sometimes they just get the right cards, they drafted the right thing, and they're just going to win, and then the other person isn't playing. And I didn't feel like majority of the time that was the case with this game. Until, like I said, that one particular situation came up, and so there are still some of that, but overall, I did feel like this was a give and take, as opposed to a lot of collectible trading card games where like I win,
Yeah.
So I did like that.
I do appreciate that too, and I like that, like the new like auxiliary expansion pack. It's called Ox 1, I think. Has 3 protocols in it. So 3 protocols, 6 cards each. So you can kind of add a little bit to it. And I assume that the Compile Main 2, which will be another main box with like 12 protocols, I assume those will be able to be mixed and matched with this box. So, you can... I probably wouldn't be the person to buy like both boxes and mix everything in and draft. I would probably want to add a little bit at a time, kind of thing. So it's interesting that they decided to go to a second main box with like drop a whole 12 new protocols instead of just continue to add 3 at a time in these like smaller packs. But
it's probably easier to balance that way. That'd be my guess of why they did it. Was these 12 protocols feel good together, these 12 protocols feel good together. That'd be my guess, but we don't know yet.
Could very well be. One thing that I thought was a little bit awkward, and again, playing more, maybe that goes away, but you're supposed to lay out all 12 protocols, like all of the protocols, and then draft from everything. So I feel like if you and I played this game 10 times,
Right.
we would probably gravitate towards specific protocols, and we'd probably end up playing very similar games over and over again instead of having some variety.
Right.
I don't know if that's the case or not, but that's kind of what my gut's telling me.
Right.
I wonder if it would be. I thought it was weird that they said put all 12 out and then draft them. I thought that was a little bit strange, because if it's always the same 12 available, you would probably end up with your favorites. And then if I'm drafting first, I go for my favorite, and then you grab the counter, and then you grab your favorite, and then I grab my counter to your favorite, and then and then we play with the same 6 protocols, or probably the same 6 to 8 protocols every game. Right.
Yeah.
Instead of
I
having
haven't played enough to know, but yeah. I think
so I wonder
potential
if the move will end up being eventually where you get these expansion packs, the main box 2, and then you shuffle up all of the protocols, and then you lay out 12. And then it's like, okay, we draft from these 12 or from these 10, whatever. Right. So I wonder if that's the move. However, then you get a little bit of, you lose some of that meta of like, I know these 12 protocols really well, and we get this meta game going where you grab that, I grab this, you play that, I play this, and it's like you're playing this meta game. You probably lose a little bit of that by expanding. So I guess we'll have to see as the game expands and we explore the game some more.
Yeah.
Very cool. So I actually had not thought about this until just now, but we typically will rate the game and on a BGG scale of 1 to 10. And I literally had not thought about it for a second of what my rating for this would be until just now. So I'm going to think about it for a second, and I'll let you go first.
All right. So I thought about it as far as this morning. So I haven't thought about it until this morning either. So let me disclaim that I prefer heavy Euros as my game of choice. Mm-hmm. So this is a little bit out of my wheelhouse. I prefer not direct take that. And there's a lot of that is in this game.
Yeah.
So my rating is 7 out of 10. I easily understand the average 8 out of 10. I dock it. So what I like about the game is the hidden combos, the ease and understanding of these keywords, and how those eventually lead to very interesting lines of strategy. The variety of how they use the keywords, I think, is very clever. Some of the small rules, like the control component, love that. I dock some of the points because of the ease and accessibility of getting into the game. That it's very easy to play your first game completely wrong. And how as soon as you play, somebody could absolutely smash, and then you have to play again to like, okay, there's a reason why I didn't do well is I didn't get any self-manipulation cards. I only got hate draft cards or vice versa or whatever. So just a few points off for that. But yeah, overall, great game. Components are on point for what it's trying to do. I think it's a great game.
Cool. Yeah. Looking at the whole package, if we're talking about like graphic design, art, the presentation of the game, the box, the rules and everything, I think it does an excellent job in almost every category. I love a good 2-player back and forth card game, card battler style of game. I especially appreciate the ones where it's not just hit points, where I'm trying to like kill your stuff until they die. Like, I realize that it's mostly just a theming thing, but I just think the whole package is so well done. And I really appreciate that it's not just like me trying to kill your heroes while you're trying to kill my heroes. It feels like so many 2-player card games fall into that trap. And Radlands does that a little bit. A lot of these 2-player card games, I have Wizards of the Grimoire. I don't know if you've played that one, but it's another really good 2-player card game. But that's just the thing. Like at the beginning of the game, I set up my little cards and I have 50 hit points, and the first person to do 50 points of damage wins. So although like I don't hate that, I appreciate when card games can iterate and be a little bit different than just like, there's just too much of that, I guess is what I'm getting to.
I agree.
So I have this as an 8 as my kind of preliminary number, and I have no reason to believe that it will not rise a little bit. I don't think it's ever going to get to, a 9.5 or a 10, but I could definitely see it going up to kind of in the 9-ish area as that meta game evolves for me and I dig into it a little bit further. But I super enjoyed my first 3 games, and especially that third game when we introduced the control component and the drafting. It really took the game to another level for me, the being able to play that defense and managing the control marker, I think was just the chef's kiss in terms of a mechanic to throw another layer to throw into this game. I'm super impressed with this game, and I highly recommend it, especially for a game that's $15-20 purchase. Small box you could throw in your bag and bring with you. It's the perfect like lunchtime game at work if you want to play with a buddy. You're sitting down for an hour lunch break and you can hammer out a couple of games of this easily. And I think it'll especially shine if you play with the same person or the same group over a longer period of time.
Yeah, no, I agree with
final
that.
thoughts?
Yeah, I want to clarify with my 7 out of 10. That means it's still a game that I'm going to pull off my shelf and play more. Excellent, very well designed, even with my nitpicks, and I will be playing this again.
Very cool. All right, let's jump into the movie of the episode. So anybody who's not a cinephile, doesn't care about movies, thanks for coming out. Hopefully most of you guys are sticking around for our conversation about Blade Runner 2049. This is I'm straight up going to say it's one of my favorite movies.
Really?
I'm a huge Denis Villeneuve fan. Canadian national treasure, as we always say on the pod. And there's another Canadian national treasure involved here that we'll talk about in a minute. So Blade Runner 2049, released in 2017, directed by Denis Villeneuve, starring Ryan Gosling, Harrison Ford, Ana de Armas, Dave Bautista, Robin Wright, and Jared Leto. So star-studded cast there for sure. It was nominated for 5 Academy Awards, and it rightfully so took home 2, one for visual effects and one for cinematography.
Like it should.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right?
Absolutely. So the synopsis goes that in Blade Runner 2049, set 30 years after the original film, a new Blade Runner named K unearths a long-buried secret that has the potential to plunge society into chaos. As K investigates, he discovers the existence of a replicant child, a revelation that changes the very nature of humanity. His journey leads him to find retired Blade Runner Rick Deckard, played by Harrison Ford, who has been missing for decades. As he navigates a dystopian world filled with corporate greed, existential questions, and the search for identity, all while Kay grapples with his own nature and purpose. The film explores themes of memory, humanity, and what it means to truly live. So that is the synopsis. Before we kind of jump into this movie, what's your relationship with the original Blade Runner?
That's a good question. I audited a film class in college. What
does audited mean?
So I'm a nurse by trade. So all I'm doing is going to nursing classes, healthcare, science classes. But then audited means you just attend a class without doing any assignments or getting a grade or credit for doing it. Okay. So I just showed up, I watched movies, and then we had a discussion about them. And one of the few classes that I did attend was about Blade Runner because I hadn't seen it yet. So I sat down and I watched the original Blade Runner, the original cut, and then they kind of talked about it after in the next class. So basically, just for my free time, I attended a film class
That sounds amazing. That's
Yeah,
something I would
it's a lot of
totally
fun.
love to do. Yeah.
I just walked in. The professor kind of raised his eyebrow at me, and I just sat down. And he just was okay with it. So,
Cool.
there's official way to do auditing. I didn't do it. I just showed up.
You just showed up.
I just showed up.
Cool. So yeah, what is your? How do you feel about that original Blade Runner? What was that? What was your? So you watched it as like an adult the first time. You didn't watch it as like a teenager, because this obviously came out.
Yeah, I was 19. Yeah, okay. I watched it when I was 19, which is too long ago. So my original impression was, I would say I had a little bit of watching more grandiose kind of hardcore sci-fi growing up, but not too much on a critical standpoint. So that was one of my first times really kind of watching a movie with the idea that I'm going to want to think about the purpose of their shots, of the character development and all that stuff. So I really hadn't done too much of it yet. So it kind of blew my mind in the lens where like I'm trying to watch this movie to see what's good and not good about it. I hadn't done a lot of that. So it did kind of blow my mind. I will say in general, though, the movie has a very different feel and vibe than a lot of things I had watched prior to that.
Mm-hmm.
So, at first I said, like, I don't know if I like that. And then, of course, I've got captivated by that kind of genre now, and I watch a lot of it.
Right.
But at the time, it was more like, I don't know. I felt numb watching that. It was like, wait, that was the purpose. Oh my God, this movie blew my mind, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like the original Blade Runner is kind of like a poem that you don't, like, you kind of get the themes of the poem. It's like a poem that, like, because of the way it's written, you don't fully grok everything. You're not fully every line is like, aha, yes. Mm-hmm. Like, but like by the end of the poem, you're like, you have feelings and you don't fully understand everything you just heard or saw. But you felt it. And by the end of it, you're like, I get some of the themes. I get some of the stuff they're going for. I don't fully understand it all, but I have feelings and emotions because of it. And I think that the exclamation point, the cherry on top of that thought is the Tears in the Rain monologue by Roy Batty. Is that his? I think that's his name. Remember. Tears in the Rain.
I think really for me the take home though was that, wow, this movie really is not for everybody. I think a lot of people are going to hate this movie, and that means I'm weird because this movie is amazing. So Roy Batty in the original, so the line goes, I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. Attack ships on fire off the shoulder of Orion. I watched sea beams glitter in the dark near the Tannhauser Gate. All those moments will be lost in time like tears in the rain. Like, I don't know what any of that means, right? Like, but at the end of it, I'm like, damn, like that hit me for some reason. Something.
Yeah, he said something cool, especially as like a teenager watching that for the first time. I'm like, that is so cool. I don't know why, but man, that's cool. And that's how I feel about the whole movie. Like, it doesn't feel like a lot happens. Because
nothing does.
He's given this assignment of like hunting down this rogue group of what do they call them? Replicants. And so he's trying to kind of find them and trying to get rid of them. And in the end, I guess he mostly succeeds. In terms of like plot, that's pretty much all of it. Like he meets and falls in love with this other replicant, Rachel, and there's some really cool stuff going on. Like some of the scenes are just like burned into my brain and will never go away. The original interrogation where he sits down with a replicant and asks him a ton of questions, and he's like studying him and trying to figure out whether or not this is a real person or not. That is fascinating and brilliant, and the acting in those scenes are just great. I think the main I'll echo this with 2049. The main kind of like the crowning achievement of both of these movies is the cinematography and the look and feel, the vibe of these movies.
Oh yeah.
So that's what I took away mostly from the original Blade Runner was the production design. It's like, this feels like a real place that we're heading to.
Why does it feel too close to home? Speaking of scenes that burn my mind, and this I think to me really sets the stage and the tone for the sequel, is there's the one replicant that doesn't want to die, and he's begging the doctor to make it so he can live longer.
Yeah.
Right. And then, the doctor's like, I can't do that. And in that realization of his mortality, rather than being a cold, calculated, emotionless, whatever you want to call a replicant, he gets so mad and violent, he just murders the doctor, even though the doctor couldn't do anything for him. Yeah. And that scene, I think, kind of encapsulates a lot of the theming of the original and how that translates into replications that led up to the sequel.
Yeah.
What is emotions? Does that make us human? We label things that I'm getting too much into it, but yeah, that kind of burned to my brain, and how I think about how that led up to the sequel events.
Yeah. These like heady sci-fi, cerebral sci-fi is like probably my favorite genre. So if you go into a really well put together sci-fi film that has a great setting and vibes, and then you add that layer of like really interesting, thought-provoking, explorations of humanity and what makes a person, what makes a soul, what makes a person, like all of those themes I think hit so hard for me. It's just something that I'm absolutely fascinated with. I asked this question a little bit at the beginning of the pod, but at what point does a line get crossed when a thing is able to think and feel and have emotions?
Yeah.
And it's the Turing test, right? Like, does the Turing test is whether or not you can tell whether or not a thing is real, not necessarily whether or not that thing has actual value. As like, when do you start treating that person as more than a machine, as more than a robot? When do you start treating that robot or that replicant the way you would treat a real human? When does that line get crossed, right? And we're looking at Blade Runner 2049 now, and you're looking at, or even in the original, you're looking at, the Rachel character, the Ryan Gosling character, a lot of the characters, if not most of the characters we meet, are replicants. And as a viewer, you're watching this and you care about them as much as you care about some of the human characters, but they don't treat them that way, right? Like, the human characters still treat the quote unquote skin jobs as less than. So there's some parallels there with slavery and with, classist thoughts and stuff like that,
100%.
as well. So there's interesting, conversations to be had there, but the one that fascinates me the most is the like, when does the line get crossed where a thing deserves to be treated like a human? So
here's a thought for you that I love when I start talking about AI. Very salient right now is what is an AI and what is an algorithm. Right now, we say all our AI. We have our AI right now. You have Gemini, you have ChatGPT. Those are not AI. Those are algorithms.
Right.
But how many people have you said, hey Siri, play this song, and like, oh, she didn't understand me. She's such a bitch to me. Right? So like, it's just a computer program, but they're, you're anthropomorphing it it's a lot easier to cross that line when you have an attachment and a to whatever it is, as opposed to when you watch this movie, they keep this division so high that that, like, they literally talk about, there's a great quote that we'll talk about in a second, but there's a literal wall between the replicants and the humans, and because of that, the line is harder, it's more defined. Yet in practice, when we're just talking about, we say our freaking Google Home Assistant has a personality, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, fascinating discussion this we'll get into.
Yeah. Yeah, so Blade Runner 2049, I guess we can get into the plot a little bit, but our main character, Ryan Gosling character, whose name is K, and the reason his name is K is because his name is replicant number KBYX39 whatever, and so his nickname is K for that reason. So already right off the hop, just with the character's name, not treated as human, even though it's very clear right from the beginning this replicant has real emotions and feels real and is going through life and makes their own choices, is fully autonomous, has to manage their own income, their own apartment, their own life, right? So to me, this is a futuristic world, but to me, this is, as close to human as you can get. So why is it that these people get treated as less than? In the original, all of the replicants were given like 4-year lifespans, I think it was. And so it was, I guess, a little bit more controlled. But now fast forward to 2049's version, and we've got replicants that live as long as they need to live. I'm not sure they've mentioned the lifespan, or I guess we see with the Dave Bautista character that they do get old, and eventually will probably die just because they break down like humans. Like we call them robots, but they're not robots. They're fully organic humans that bleed and need to eat, and their bodies need to act and work like humans' bodies do. So eventually they will break down, and I don't mean break down in the mechanical sense. I mean break down in the biological sense. I don't know if their lifespans are longer or whatever, but yeah. So Kay,
now you're starting to confuse me. I think Dave Bautista's character was one of the originals that had an infinite lifespan. And then when the Wallace Corporation took over, they all now had a limited lifespan?
I might be wrong, but I think the original models had 4-year lifespans. And then they started to create, and then like that went well enough, I guess, that they started to give them unlimited lifespans. But then there was a rebellion or something happened where they got out of control. And so they started banning them and not allowing them to be created at all. And Blade Runners were, instructed to hunt down the last of them. And then you fast forward to 30 years later, the Wallace Corporation, who was not the Tyrell Corporation, but this Wallace Corporation owned by the Jared Leto company character, bought what was left of the Tyrell Corporation and their technologies, and through fail safes and new technology or whatever the case is, reintroduced replicants, but ones that were subservient, and ones that would listen and would not cause any issues. So I guess Dave Bautista's character, the one that we see at the very beginning that has the fight with Ryan Gosling, he, I think you're right, is one of the original ones without a limited lifespan, that had an unlimited lifespan or could grow old. And he was a part of the group, I guess, that helped hide this thing that had happened with Deckard and Rachel and their baby.
Right.
So, without getting too into the weeds with the plot, basically, Deckard and Rachel, the original characters from the first one, fell in love at the end of that movie. I think they go to live their life together. What ended up happening is that she got pregnant. A replicant got pregnant, which was a huge, huge deal amongst replicants. So they decided that they would need to hide this fact and keep it from humans so that nobody knew about it. And then so when after a birth was given, Rachel died at birth. The child was then hidden, taken away, and I guess put into this orphanage to hide the fact. And Deckard disappeared and did his own thing in order to try to preserve the life of the child, which they figured would be important later in some sort of rebellion, which is what kind of is transpiring near the end of Blade Runner 2049. Am I explaining this? Is all this making sense so far?
Yeah.
The plot is not overly convoluted, but it does not reveal itself in a way that is super easy to follow. Having watched it, I watched it again last night to kind of catch up with everything and have it fresh in mind for this review. But I think this was it was all very, very clear to me on this recent watch exactly what had transpired, and maybe for the first time, because originally I had always thought, obviously I figured it out near the end of the movie, but for a long time I thought Dave Bautista was the father, right? In the first time that I watched it anyways, and then near the end you kind of figure out that that's not the case. And then I think the most fascinating thing, so what happens is that Ryan Gosling discovers this grave that has a replicant, a deceased replicant's remains, bones, and it's clear that this person died giving birth. And then they zoom in a little bit further and look more into the DNA and realize that this was a replicant that gave birth, which could potentially send shock waves through humanity and cause some major, major issues if replicants are able to, procreate. Because they're superior beings. They're stronger and faster and smarter, and and if they don't just be slaves, it could cause some major issues. So that's kind of the inciting event of the movie.
Before I forget, there was a great detail near the beginning of the movie that Ryan Gosling's character Kay is the catalyst for this whole movie, in the fact where he goes to be a Blade Runner to assassinate the rogue replicant, but his innate curiosity that is not supposed to be programmed into his brain, he thinks, what's this tree doing here? Why is this unique? And then when they looking at the bones, he's curious. He's like, there's something more to here.
Yeah,
what's
he's
this
the one
anomaly? What's this anomaly here? Oh, she gave birth. Oh, what's this anomaly here? Zooms in, sees the serial number. So it's interesting. I think there's a lot to unpack there, but the basic take home is that it's the person that's supposed to not be human is the one that is curious about this, to dig in deeper, to kind of find more meaning in something, when the other characters are like, oh, this is done, we did it, let's move on.
Yeah, absolutely. That curiosity is obviously something that
drives the whole movie almost.
It drives the whole movie and is something that you might not expect from, a quote unquote a robot. But obviously these are way more than just robots. And again, that begs the question, when is the line crossed? When is that line crossed when you become a valuable human? And there's talks about even the soul in this movie, the question is I guess the statement is said, you're getting along fine without a soul.
Right.
Which he has a visceral reaction to. Like you could see it in his face. It's very subtle, but he's like,
It's very subtle.
screw you, man. Like I'm valuable too, you know? And that's at the point of the movie where he starts to question, you know, his place in the world and how much value he actually has and that sort of thing.
So I was going to say that I think the original Blade Runner was more about, you know, do emotions make us human or not? And like that was what the original was about, right? And I think in this movie, I think we already know that discussion because of the original. So that's I don't think what was the discussion that they were trying to put up forward with this one is because clearly you know this character feels things. Kay has emotions. He's just been conditioned to not show them and to not use them, right? But they're there. It's in those micro expressions, that pause before he says something, that kind of desperate blank stare that's not actually blank, right?
Yeah.
So it's more, I think, to me, what I think some of the very interesting things was how they were the humans treated inhumanely towards the replicants. And I think that's a great example is this, they're just being mean, right? And I think this is more of a discussion about like, okay, we established that these beings have emotions, and whether we say they're human or not, people are treating them inhumanely. And I think that's more of the discussion with this one. So I thought that was fascinating.
There's a huge exclamation point put on it in that, like he gets home one day and there's like a racist slur on his door. It says like skin job or something like that, or F off skin job or something like that on his apartment door. And what I thought was, I actually like chuckled at that moment, because when he gets to his apartment, he replicant who is less than, who is not worthy, who is looked at as garbage, walks into his apartment building and walks by a whole bunch of vagrants and homeless people who are all probably humans, who all look down and scoff at him. And then he walks into his like pretty nice apartment with some pretty nice technology, and he has a good job, and like he has like this actual, what we would look at as actual, like, you know, a service to society. Like he's actually contributing to the world. Whereas like all these other people who look down at him and scoff at him are like street people. So I thought that was a really interesting kind of like contrast there between the different people who actually aren't contributing to society, treating him like a piece of garbage.
And then he goes into his apartment and he's all isolation and completely by himself, and you know, has this whole routine with this AI companion, because who's going to be a companion to this being that is lesser than us, another lesser than us being?
Yeah,
and I think
exactly.
that was super great commentary there, and how they set that up. I think the world building is fantastic. Just the first 30 minutes of just setting the mood.
That's the all-star of this movie, is the world building, the production design, the cinematography. It just looks incredible. And every 10 minutes you're seeing a new thing that just blows your mind, or is like super interesting or gorgeous, or it's really an impressive movie in all kinds of different ways. And it's interesting that you say, like, you call the Ana de Armas character an AI, a lesser than AI, and then it's literally that, because when they were at one point they were discussing their programming and how he has 4 digits of codes available to make his programming, whereas she is binary. She mentioned she's ones and zeros, whereas he's 4 different characters. So he's, you know, I don't know if it scales exactly that way, but he's twice as complex. It's probably more than that, but you get the point.
Yeah,
she's
that's a great line that Joy says, and I think the direct quote I have it written down is, "Mere data makes a man A and C and G and T," and I just hammering that kind of concept that, you know, we make these artificial walls and divisions to try and define each other, but you look down on us, we're data too, according to the being that's literally made of data. I don't know. I thought that was fantastic.
Yeah, it's really, really great stuff. There's just so much there. You could probably get into the weeds and talk about this movie for hours and hours and hours. We're not going to do that, but yeah, the Joy character is one of my favorite components of this whole movie. First of all, I have a huge crush on Ana de Armas, so that doesn't hurt. You know, she's just so charming and adorable. And yeah, those big eyes batting at you, you know.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, she's just like, I think charming and adorable, I think are the two main things that come to mind. But it's interesting to think, like, is she sentient? Is she
right?
Or is she just like an algorithm that's programmed to do and say all of the things that she thinks Kay's character would want?
Way too close to home in modern society right now. I love that.
So really, really interesting. I found that dynamic between him and her was like fascinating. And you saw how hard it hit him when he lost her. Like, that was clearly devastating. That was a really, really tough moment, executed by the Love character, which was I think one of my other favorite characters. She is just like haunting and terrifying. I think she could be like the centerpiece of a horror movie. She was so good. And oh man, terrifying. I love that character so much.
Well, so speaking of Joy, it's just one of the greatest things about sci-fi is establishing a rule and then making you doubt it the whole time. And actually I have another thing on that note, but speaking of Joy, is how many times do they remind you that she's just a computer program?
Mm-hmm.
You know, the replicant that, you know, it's a prostitute says like, oh, you prefer fake women or something like that.
Yeah.
Or Love says, oh, I hope you like our products. So they continuously remind you that she's not real.
Yeah.
And then at the end, after having lost her, they show you that big projection that's an advertisement. And she says, you look like a good Joe, or whatever she
Devastating.
said. To show you that potentially could be a pre-programmed response and line of thought from this potentially just an algorithm, right?
Yeah.
Like, to remind you that she's not necessarily a true AI. Maybe not. It's just, it wants you to doubt it that whole time, that you keep feeling this connection to this character, but then purposely makes you feel like, why do you have this connection to this character? Because they're not a character. And I think that's just mean in such a good way.
Yeah. Like another perfect example of that is when he first gives her the freedom from that like ceiling projector thing.
Yep.
And then he's like, where do you want to go? You can go anywhere in the world now. So they go out onto the rooftop. She gets to experience outside for the first time, and it's raining. So she like puts her hand out, and her hand, like, eventually she figures out how to make her hand look wet. Cause at first it doesn't. At first it doesn't get wet. It's just like, and then all of a sudden you start to see the rain finally hit her hand, and she starts to actually look wet. And then they have this like weird charade of him like actually kissing her. Right. And then all of a sudden she pauses because he's getting a phone call. So you get that contrast again from like this really beautiful, lovely moment where they actually try to make you feel something for this AI character, to just like rip you out of it and be like, just kidding. This is just a robot, just a nothing. Like, this is not a real person. Right. You're like, damn, how can you do that to me with Ana de Armas's eyes? You can't do that to me. That's not fair. Just another great moment. Yeah, so I guess so there's the players in here are like Jared Leto plays this like Wallace character, and then he uses Love, who is played by, I want to mention her name, Hoax. Yeah, Sylvia Hoax. I wanted to mention her name specifically because I think she like is so good in this, and again, horrifying.
Might be the best might be the best role.
Yeah, terrifying, horrifying. Like,
yeah.
I feel like, I don't know if you've seen Megan. Like, this could be that. She could be the lead of a horror movie, like Megan. But anyways, so they get wind of this, like, this child born of replicants. So he desperately wants to hunt it down, find it, so he can exploit it and use it, and have this, like, revolution of, I don't know, revolution is the right word, but he clearly wants replicants to rule the world. That's like, seems to be his kind of like MO. So he's desperately trying to hunt down this child character. And then you've got Kay, who's working sort of outside the LAPD that he works for, because he's not asked to investigate this, right? Like, he's told to just, like, find the baby and kill it. But it's clear that it means a whole lot more to him than it does to the LAPD. And we find out why. And it's interesting that he ends up implicated in all this. And it's just another moment, and it takes the whole movie to do this, but it's just another moment of, like, ripping you out of the like feeling that he matters and he's a real person. And what I mean by that is, like, this whole movie, they're setting it up where we believe that he's potentially is the child. He has these memories, and he ends up, like, following the trail of breadcrumbs. He finds the horse and realizes that his memory is real, like a memory that he had where he thought it was just an implant. And then by the end of the movie, we find out that it was just an implant. It just happened to be a real implant, a memory that somebody else actually lived that was implanted within him. But that's another interesting conversation on the whole AI thing, and that line that I keep referencing. And this is a thought that I had watching this movie last night, is that, you and I, real people, at this moment in time, we are the result of our lives that we have lived and all the memories that we have gained and the experiences that we have had. That's what has shaped us into being who we are today. If those memories and experiences and things are not, we didn't actually live them, what difference does that make if they're still there?
Yeah.
Right. So if a person has all of those memories and experiences in their head, what difference does it make if those things actually happen to that person? Because in this moment, that person is still that person and is still who they are based on all the memories and experiences that they believe that they have had. So does that make the person less real? Does it make them less who they are?
Yeah.
It's an interesting question.
It's a lot to talk about. Sure. You go into classic psychology, are we nature, are we nurture? And, making these people full adults from the get-go with a personality, that is set on these pre-programmed memories that they were given right at the get-go. Now, these are still, have DNA, right? The replicants are, organically human in a lot of ways. So that does pick up. Does the memories make a person, or is it the experience that makes the person, or was it there the whole time? It's very interesting, and something that the doctor about the dream specifically said, the quote that I really liked was, "If you have authentic memories, you have real human responses." And, like, that's the whole reason why they need this complicated person to do these complicated memory implants into these. Otherwise, they don't respond in the correct way, right? So that's why they have to have these memories. So I think that is an integral discussion, is at the minimum, you need experiences to be a person.
Yeah.
Whether they need to be authentically there or not, that's the question of the film, right?
Yeah, like if you erased a person's memory, like a real human being, and we had the technology to erase their memory completely. And then you took another person's memories, another person's full life lived, and implanted that person would become the new memories result.
Right. What would happen there? Exactly.
So is this person who is fully a human, they just have new memories, is this person legitimate? Are they a legitimate person with a soul that you should treat
wild,
right? Like a human?
So many discussions. This movie brings up so many interesting discussions.
Yeah. So I just feel like my personal opinion is that if a person's capable of feeling pain and love and emotions, negative and positive, whether that person was born or created or however, they probably deserve to be treated the way that you would want to be treated.
Sure.
So like that belief in me, which is a result of my memories in life, is the reason that a movie like this is so profound and in parts painful to watch when you see, Ryan Gosling's character being treated like crap the whole movie and treated like they're less than. So yeah, it's just interesting, really interesting stuff. We're using the word interesting so much because it's just fascinating.
I don't have a better word for it. Can I pull out another quote that I really want to discuss?
Mm-hmm. Please.
All right. So this goes back to what I was saying. What I love about a good sci-fi is when they establish a rule and then they break it. My first thought, I always like to go to Isaac Asimov's 3 laws about robotics.
Yeah.
Is he writes a whole book about these 3 laws that make robotics. First of all, robotics don't even exist. And then he makes the 3 laws that make robotics work. We're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And then the whole book is about how those laws aren't good enough. So the leader of the underground replicant resistance, I forget the character's name, says dying for the right cause is the most human thing we can do.
Yeah.
And we establish that's the rule. You go kill Deckard. Spoiler. You go kill Deckard. Right? But then what does Cade do? He actually spares Deckard and helps
saves him.
him.
Yeah.
And dies in the process. But whether or not he dies or not is to me, what I thought was fascinating was the discussion was Deckard needs to die for the right cause. But then we break the rule by saying, no, we need to save him.
And he died for that cause. Cade died for Deckard.
So,
right?
So we established that rule, but we also break the rule because the rule was Deckard was going to die. But Kay is more human to me because he actually makes the decision to spare him. I just love that whole kind of sequence, how that played out is beautiful.
Yeah, I love that last shot of him like laying on the steps in the snow and bleeding out and knowing that he reunited Deckard with his daughter. He died for that cause, which is the most human thing you can do. So I thought was a beautiful moment because we just saw Kay get everything torn away from him, right? Like he doesn't have he doesn't have meaning anymore. He doesn't have his job. He doesn't have joy. He lost, like, joy is destroyed. He thought he was this child. He thought he had real parents and that he had like all of this meaning. That got ripped away from him. He had nothing, and chose to spare Deckard and set him up for this beautiful reunion with his daughter. So it's like, and then the contrast to that is in the original, Roy Batty's character, when he finds out that it's completely futile and that the doctor can't extend his life and whatever, he turns to rage and murders people. And Ryan Gosling's character chose the opposite. So there's some really nice kind of like contrasting between two different replicants. And to me, if these things are just robots that follow their programming, they would potentially react in the same way, but they don't.
Right.
They're completely different beings. They're valid, right?
Right. It's hard to not call them human.
It is. It really
the
is.
way
Yeah.
they set out the movie.
Yeah. So maybe we could just call out a few of
Yeah.
some of our favorite moments, scenes, that kind of thing, and then we'll wrap it up. I don't want to go too long here.
Yeah, sorry, we've been going too long.
But yeah, it's just like the all-star of this is for me, the setting, the beauty of it. Every scene is just gorgeous and showing you something that you've never seen before. Even right near the beginning of the movie, when he goes back into the LAPD and he does that, what do they call it? A baseline test.
Yeah.
Post-traumatic baseline test, where cells interlinked and just repeating all this stuff, and all of it is completely gibberish. It doesn't, like, to us, doesn't mean anything. We don't follow or understand how this technology works or how they're able to decipher whether or not he's, what does baseline even mean? We don't even understand any of it, but it's fascinating. And we're like, I just love that scene of him in that white room, responding to the voice behind the camera.
Yeah. Great. I agree. Fascinating. What I really love most about this movie is the world building and the cinematography.
Mm-hmm.
How much of the world building is slammed into right at the beginning and just really sets the stage for the rest of the movie. But obviously it's still shown throughout the movie, the ocean barriers around the city to show that, what rising sea is a problem, the entire wasteland dump at San Diego is now literally just a literal pile of garbage. The abandoned Las Vegas from some sort of dirty bomb. You don't even know what happened, but there's a rich history there.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Everything
the orange
is still,
colors and all that.
Yeah,
and the statues and amazing.
And then there's the guy that that wants to give him off-world tickets for the little piece of wood. Just like so many small details that really show there's just a rich history there, but you don't need to explore it further to understand that. And then the actual cinematography itself, there's so many shots that feel very constrained, that make K look small compared to these giant structures. Yet then there's scenes where he's small in sort of these big open spaces, and there's a lot of use of space, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
In the way they use the shots to make this scenes feel constrained, and certain scenes feel like there's so much open, uncertainty, and how they used that as a literary device was just how they framed shots.
Yeah, it's the reason they won. Like Roger Deakins, if I'm not mistaken, I think this was his first Oscar win as a cinematographer, and he's done, his resume is massive. Look up Roger Deakins. He's Shawshank Redemption and a ton of really iconic shots and movies. I'm trying to see if I can find, here it is. So just to name a few, Shawshank Redemption, Prisoners, No Country for Old Men, 1917, which we mentioned earlier, Fargo, Big Lebowski, Sicario, True Grit, Oh Brother, We're Out There. He's worked with the Coen brothers a lot, obviously. So that's just to name a few. The list goes on and on and on. He's got tons and tons and tons of credits as a cinematographer. And if I'm not mistaken, I think this was his first ever win as a cinematographer. So Roger Deakins is a legend. For us cinephiles, is a household name. But for other people, maybe they don't realize the impact that he's had on all these iconic movies. Yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful stuff. I'm trying to think of some of the other really cool, neat technologies and scenes that we get in this movie. Another, actually, talking about the Las Vegas, when he goes into that hotel where Harrison Ford's character lives.
Just Home Alone it.
Yeah, exactly. And the set piece that really sticks out is that like holographic stage where we get glimpses of like Frank Sinatra, Elvis, Marilyn Monroe, all, mostly Elvis, I think, in that scene. But there's like basically a fight scene where they have this like malfunctioning Elvis concert happening with like the holograms and everything, and the music glitching in and out and the lights glitching in and out. It's just so cool. Like that, again, the world building, right? Like you can imagine that functioning properly and that room being alive with people who are gambling and drinking and enjoying themselves. And then you like fast forward 100 years or whatever, and then you've got this glitching fight sequence happening. And like, it's just so cool. How much world building there is that's very subtle that you don't even like really think about until maybe after the fact.
And that is, they show you that it's super cool, but knowing that's ancient technology almost compared to what is the current setting, which is great.
Yeah. A lot of the stuff where in the Jared Leto, the Wallace Corporation building is really cool. Yeah. The cinematography there is great. The Jared Leto character himself and his intentions and what he's trying to accomplish and whatever, and his monologuing and all that, like I like it fine, but it's maybe my least favorite part of the whole movie. I don't know if it's just because it's Jared Leto and like
hold on, you think he was acting?
Yeah, maybe
Did
not.
I say that?
He's just being himself.
Just being him.
Yeah. Not a huge fan of Jared Leto. Like he's a good actor and he's done some really good stuff, but I don't know. He just comes off as being a little too full of himself. And
I saw a 30 Seconds to Mars concert because I really used to really like that band. Okay. And as soon as the concert started is when I kind of got disillusioned, like almost instantly.
Really?
Yeah, he comes. He. I don't know if he still does it, but around the time the third album or something came out, he comes out like dressed like Jesus, and he like starts waving a flag everywhere, and it's very culty. Anyway, so yeah, I still think his character is interesting to kind of show. I don't know. I think that's a big contrast. Try not to talk about too much, but to contrast that, like, this guy has so much power and influence that he himself is no longer human, in my opinion. Right? Like he literally thinks of him as a god, and the only emotion he has is rage that he hasn't actually reached godhood in his opinion.
Right.
So I think that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I like the idea of the character. I like the in terms of like serving the plot. I have no issues. It's mostly just the monologuing, the performance, maybe that I just didn't love. It's fine. It fits. It works. I don't dislike it. It's just maybe my least favorite part of the movie. I don't have a lot of negative to say about this film. I just, the story wise, there's a little bit more there to chew on, and the mystery of the child and the reveal of what it is and all of that I found is very satisfying. I feel like the movie was fairly ballsy, because you really feel like most Hollywood movies would make Ryan Gosling, the main character, would make him the Messiah, would make him the child. Sure. And they just like pull that rug out from underneath you. And I appreciate that swing, that plot beat. It doesn't, I just don't like it when movies like just give you exactly what you want. It just feels pandering, where they just did not do that at all with this movie, right? At every opportunity, they're like, look how cool this is, and they take it away. Look how lovely this relationship is. Oh, it's not real. Look how great it is that this person can like find actual meaning. No, just kidding. Like he's not anybody. He's just he's nothing. They rip it all away. And yet you do find this humanity, and you do find like silver linings in the way that you were talking about that game a while ago, the walking simulator game, you know, where it's like all fairly
What
dark,
Remains
but
of Edith
there's
Finch.
some silver linings there. So much great stuff to say about this movie. Again, it's mostly the
two thoughts I want to
yeah, go ahead.
end with is one, my actual criticism of this movie is I did not like Harrison Ford in it.
Oh yeah.
So having seen the original and seeing how, you know, there's always this question of whether he's a replicant or not.
Yes.
Like, 'cause
yeah,
he's
we
very
haven't discussed that at
level-headed.
all.
Yeah, that's a different discussion. But I felt like in this movie, maybe this is just me. I felt like he was just Harrison Ford. He didn't act like
Does
Harrison Ford is
ever
it's
act?
just well, that's what I'm saying. Like, he's just a grumpy old guy now. I mean, super fun. Love always watching everything, all his antics. But like, I just felt like he was just grumpy, and there's a lot of good reasons why his character should be grumpy. But I think when I watch it, I'm like, oh, that's Harrison Ford.
Yeah, that's fair, I guess. I don't think he's any different in the original or in Indiana Jones or in Star Wars or in anything. He's just like grumpy Harrison Ford.
I think he's a little more emotionless in the first one. I think he's playing into the fact that whether or not he's a replicant more. It's very obvious in this one. Well, I mean, we established that, you know, replicants can have emotions, so he can be emotional in this one. But, you know, based on his experience or whatever, he's just a grumpy old guy. I was like, oh, there's that grumpy old Harrison Ford.
Yeah, I would have preferred if they left, especially for the original, if they had left it more vague. You know, in the original cut, it was 100% vague. You had no idea whether or not he was a replicant. There was no hints either way. There was just like this like lingering question. And then in the extended cut, I don't even remember this moment, but apparently near the end, there's like a shot where you see like that yellow glow in his eyes for like a split second, just enough to like make you question it. And then they throw all that mystery away. And I guess they never explicitly say, right, that the child was born of two replicants. Do they say that?
No.
No, they just know that the mother was, which
yes,
I guess is really the more important thing. It's the childbearing sex. So, but I think they heavily imply that he's a replicant in this one. So that
I think they still play around it. There's some lines by Wallace where he's like something along the lines where like, did you ever think you were designed to fall in love with Rachel, or not designed? Or not designed. So he like purposely, I feel like that line was literally just to mess with people. It's like, oh, he just said he is a replicant. It's like, oh wait, he's not. Maybe that's more a philosophical question about creator or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, they play along that line, I think, still. But I don't know. The last thing I wanted to mention was I love this director and I want to see more from him. We could talk about Dune or whatever. But the other movie that he did that I absolutely love is Arrival, and I absolutely love that movie.
Yeah.
And what I loved about Blade Runner and Arrival is he has a really good, interesting way of making you not feel one way or another, and then you kind of feel a slow rising tension through the whole movie, and then like by the end of the movie, where when Kay finds out he's not the actual like child, I felt my heart drop because I didn't realize I had this tension this whole time because of how slow burn and building it was. And I feel like Denis does a really good job with that in his movies, is that you don't realize how much tension you have until it's already all there. And I felt like Arrival was also another good example of that. So I appreciate that about
it's
his
a lot
style.
more hidden in Arrival than it is in this movie, but
true.
It's more of a twist, but they still plant all the seeds that are required for you to have those feelings in the end. But you're right, he has a way of putting all of these themes and these ideas into your head without just saying them explicitly.
Yeah.
Which I think is a really subtlety. I think is just an art that is lost a lot of times when you watch a James Cameron movie, for example. I mean, I love James Cameron for what he does, and he does an excellent job for what he does, but subtlety is not a thing that he does.
Michael Bay.
Michael Bay. Yeah, I would hesitate to even call him an artist at all. But
yeah, you gotta make explosions look good.
Yeah.
When you got to make contact. Why is that explosion there? I mean, that's that. I think that's
why did that apple cart just blow up? Like what? Yeah. Anyway, I'm a huge fan of Arrival too. Denis Villeneuve is in the conversation for one of my favorite creators of all time. Big fan of the guy. I wanted to shout out to Dave Bautista's very, very small but incredible performance. I think the guy is a very underrated actor. He's had a few dramatic roles of late. Knock at the Cabin, I thought he was excellent in that. I'm hoping that he continues to do more dramatic roles.
Yes.
He is like really, really good, and kind of the polar opposite of like The Rock or Dwayne Johnson, who has a ton of charisma, but like in terms of acting, he just he's not doing. Yeah,
he's the Michael Bay.
Yeah, he's the Michael Bay of acting. Exactly.
Which has its place, which can be fun
for sure. Yeah, I like Dwayne Johnson. I'm not like I don't mean that to be a disrespect, but there's like subtlety and like performing versus just being in a movie and being an action star or whatever, right? In the same way that like Arnold was a great performer, great at what he did, but he is not a great actor, right?
Oh, 100%.
In that way. Cool. So I guess let's move on to our ratings for this one. So we do a 5 out of 5 star rating, the way that Letterboxd does it. We've kind of followed that model. So let's start with you.
I mean, I think it's pretty obvious that we're both obsessed with this movie. I mean, like, there are some small things in this movie, but it's not going to stop me from saying it's a 5. I will revisit this movie many times in my future, and try and find the deeper meanings over and over. And I think you can only pull that out with a 5 out of 5.
Yeah. And like, in my summation is that like, yes, I love this movie. This is exactly my genre. And I think Denis Villeneuve is a genius, and I can't wait to continue to, he's still fairly young. So we probably still have, a decade plus, maybe more, maybe a couple decades of his work. So I'm just really excited for that. But I think that when I first put this on, I realized it was almost 3 hours long. And I started it at like 10:30 last night. Sure. And I was oh man, I forgot how long this movie was. But I needed to watch it to, for this morning's recording. And I will say that it did not feel like almost 3 hours long. It's like, it's not in a hurry to get anywhere. A lot of scenes are paced out and drawn out, but it's all for good reason. And I just want to live in that world. I just want to soak in the world that they've created, and it's done so well that at no point was I felt like it was dragging on. Like I said, every 10-15 minutes, it feels like you're seeing something you've never seen before, experiencing or seeing a technology that you've never seen before done in a certain way. I think the movie's genius. And when I first heard they were making a Blade Runner sequel, I'm like, what the heck are they doing? Like, why touch
what could they do? Yeah,
perfect artifact of its time. And when I heard it was Denis Villeneuve, I was like, maybe it'll be good. And he nailed it. And then Dune is supposed to be this untouchable work, like this unadaptable work, and he did it there too. So I'm never doubting that guy ever again. That's for sure.
Seriously.
Any final thoughts?
I think we said it. It's a fantastic movie. It's not for everybody, for sure. You know, you need to have some patience.
Yeah.
You need to let yourself go with the ride and feel the emotions the movie is trying to show you.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can do that, this is a movie every person should watch.
Yeah, 100% agree. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I had a blast talking about these games and this movie with you, and I'll definitely invite you back for another.
Oh, I haven't got fired yet. Good.
You're not fired yet. Yeah.
That will happen. Awesome. It was a great time. I'm honored.
Awesome. Thanks, Isaac. If you guys are enjoying this podcast, please take a few minutes to rate, review, and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on. You can follow us on Instagram at Dice Camera Action Pod. And if you have any feedback, comments, or would like to suggest a movie game pairing for future episodes, email us at dicecameractionpod@gmail.com. And I'll also put in our link tree, link to all of our socials and all of our links. So thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you next time.